Yeah, you can proceed now.
Good evening and a warm welcome to Tamil Heritage Trust's Indology Festival 2026. The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes, said Marcel Proust. Few artistic traditions demonstrate this idea more vividly than the regional painting styles of India. Each of these styles has its own very distinct way of seeing the world, the divine, and the human experience. Welcome to day 4 of our Indology Festival, titled Caves, Courts, and Beyond Painting Traditions of India. Through 6 days, we are attempting to explore the rich and diverse painting traditions of India across time and space. We began by looking at some of the earliest expressions of Indian art found as prehistoric rock art in the caves of central India. And then we moved on to look at the Buddhist paintings in the Ajanta caves. On day 2, we looked at the grand Indian mural tradition, focusing on the temples of South India. Yesterday, we looked at the more intimate painting traditions of manuscripts and painted folios. Today, we turn our attention to a slightly different direction, the emergence of the regional painting styles. These are art schools, each of which had its own distinctive style, theme, visual grammar, and aesthetic vocabulary, yet they shared the common ground of the rich Indian literary and cultural traditions. Before we move on to the main program, I'd like to give you a brief introduction about Tamil Heritage Trust, which is our organization. A voluntary organization started by a group of like-minded people. Years back, we operate with the explicit objective of understanding, appreciating, disseminating, and celebrating information related to India's rich history and heritage, not just for those who are academically inclined or scholarly, but the average enthusiastic public as well. Towards this end, THT conducts programs throughout the year. On the first Saturday of every month, we have our monthly Heritage Talk, which is our flagship event. Then we have this Indology Festival. We are in the midst of the 7th year now. This is a week-long online event conducted in the month of June. Then in the month of December, we have an in-person event conducted in Chennai, meant to collaborate and corroborate with the Margari Isai Kacheris, and we call this the Oratory Concert. Apart from this, from THT, we also conduct several types of one-day workshops, like how to see a museum, how to see a temple, etc., where anybody can register and participate. On and off, we also have classroom sessions on a variety of topics. We also have some special events meant for specific audience, like the school teachers of Tamil Nadu or people who are aiming to become docents, etc. Apart from these initiatives, we have also instituted 2 awards from Tamil Heritage Trust. The first such award is named after our co-founder and is called Professor S. Swaminathan Heritage Award. This is given for individual contribution in the field of history and heritage. The second award is named after V. Venkaiah, who was the first official Indian epigraphist and instituted by Miss Sunita Madhavan, his great-granddaughter. THT has been entrusted with the responsibility of administering this award, which is given for individual contributions in the field of Indian epigraphy. We will soon be putting out advertisements inviting nominations for both these awards for the year 2026. We have a YouTube channel. You will find links to all our talks here, right down to today's talk. Kindly subscribe and click on the bell icon to receive notifications. These are our social media handles. This is our mailing ID. You can mail us here. If you want to join any of our initiatives in a voluntary capacity, for that also you can mail us in this ID. We are a voluntary organization. We do not have any dedicated financial backing. So any kind of contributions are welcome. Kindly use this QR code or ID to contribute, and the same will be appreciated. Now let us begin day 4. This is called regional painting styles. India has been blessed with a number of regional painting styles across its length and breadth. From these, we'll be looking at 2 such traditions today. First from Rajasthan and then from the foothills of Himalayas. Moving on to the first talk, it is called Exploring Paintings from Rajasthan, Select Examples, and will be delivered by Dr. Rita Soda from the Maharaja Sayajirao of University of Baroda. The vibrant and diverse painting traditions of Rajasthan, one of the richest and most influential schools of Indian painting, produced across numerous courts and centers over several centuries, reveal a remarkable range of artistic expression. They gave visual form to kingship and devotion, poetry and romance, history and imagination, while offering us valuable insights into the cultural worlds from which they emerged. In her talk today, Dr. Rita Soda invites us to engage with these works not merely as beautiful objects, but as sophisticated visual texts that illuminate the intellectual, emotional, and artistic life of medieval India. Few scholars have explored the intellectual and interpretive dimensions of Rajasthani painting as deeply as Dr. Soda, a art historian and faculty member in the Department of Art History and Aesthetics at the Faculty of Fine Arts, Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda. Her research has focused extensively on medieval Indian painting, particularly the visual traditions of Rajasthan. Through her publications and research, she has examined the fascinating relationship between text and image, exploring how paintings communicate meaning, convey emotion, and shape cultural understanding. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Rita. I now call upon you to take over the screen and deliver your lecture. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. Hi, Gauri. Thank you for this invitation, and I thank Tamil Heritage Trust for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. I can't see the screen, so I hope, everything is looking fine. And, I'll be looking at 2 laptops, so, my head might be nodding left and right, so please excuse me for that.
Okay.
Today's area is basically exploring paintings from Rajasthan, select examples, but I chose to narrow it down, or rather not narrow it down, but talk in detail about the patron and the painter, courts, style, and identity in Rajasthani painting. So Rajasthani painting emerged within the complex political and cultural landscape of Rajput courts between 16th and 19th centuries. Rather than constituting a single uniform tradition, it developed a constellation of regional schools, including Mewar, Marwar, Bikaner, Bundi, Kota, Jaipur, Kishangarh, and others, each shaped by its own courtly environment, patronage, structures, and artistic priority. Patrons influenced not only the production of paintings, but also their stylistic and iconographic character. The religious inclinations, literary interests, and political aspirations of individual rulers shaped the visual culture of their courts. The history of Rajasthani painting is therefore inseparable from the history of its patrons. Figures such as Maharana Jagat Singh of Mewar, Maharaja Anup Singh of Bikaner, Sawai Jai Singh II of Jaipur, and Saban Singh of Kishangarh cultivated artistic environments that transformed local workshops into major centers of cultural production. At the same time, the movement of artists, manuscripts, and artistic ideas between kingdoms fostered a dynamic process of exchange, adaptation, and innovation. As a result, regional schools developed distinctive aesthetic vocabularies while remaining connected to broader networks of artistic production. The remarkable diversity in Rajasthani painting reflects the interplay between artistic creativity and courtly patronage, through which the Rajput courts fashioned some of the most enduring visual traditions of medieval India. Any discussion on courtly painting in Rajasthan commonly begins with Mewar, which is widely regarded as the earliest Rajput school. However, its origins lie in the turbulent politics of the late 16th century. In 1568, Akbar captured Chittor after a long siege. As a result, Maharana Pratap, the Sisodia ruler of Mewar then, was compelled to relocate his court to a remote fort village called Chavand, deep in the Aravalli hills. It was here, in a court shaped by resistance, displacement, and assertion of Sisodia sovereignty, that a distinctive artistic culture continued to take form. After the death of Maharana Pratap in 1597, his son Amar Singh I inherited a kingdom still engaged in conflict. In 1615, he concluded a treaty with Jahangir, finally ending decades of warfare between them. The painting depicts the submission of Rana Amar Singh to Shah Jahan, as he was the governor in Rajasthan at that point of time. Prince Khurram, as he was called then, is at the center uh, uh, over here, over here. And the Rana bows submissively before him, touching his knees, as the Mughal and the Mewari nobles watch. Artist Nana is seen over here. He's seen recording this event and making a portrait of Amar Singh. I've given two details over here. Most of the assembled Mughal and Rajasthani courtiers are identified by minute Persian inscriptions. This event is also described by Jahangir in the Jahangir Nama. All this time, Chavand had remained the effective capital, and it was here that Mewar's first dated set of Ragmala paintings were created. Called the Chavand Ragmala because they were painted in Chavand, the set was painted by artist Nisardin. This folio depicts the Maru Ragini from the Chavand Ragmala. It is a local musical mode inspired from the popular folktale of Dhola and Maru, two lovers whose love was not accepted by their communities. As a result, they decide to elope surreptitiously at the crack of dawn. Despite being discreet, they attract the attention of feral dogs who are seen chasing them. Over here, now this painting I said was by Nisardin, and this is the colophon or the information of the artist that was there on top of the painting. Over here, we go to the detail, and it very clearly says that the ear has been, it's faded, but it says over here, word she, as you can see, Likhitam, Nisardin, Chavand Madhye. So it was painted, it bears the date 1605, the name of the artist and the place of where the painting was painted. Ragmala paintings translate verses and music into images. So I'm showing more verses, more folios from the same Chavand Ragmala text. They visualize situations around a male Rag and his beloved Ragini, traversing moods and emotions against the backdrop of time, seasons, or festivals. Ragmala series became a most enduring theme in Rajput courts. On the left is Asavari, as you can see over here. And she's derived from a community of snake charmers. So you can also see her wearing, aboriginal costume. And the rag itself is a plaintive melody of snake charmers to help them persuade snakes into submission. On the right is Tori Ragini, the melody that keeps flocks of deer away from the field. So you have the Ragini playing Tori, and the deers keep following her like the Pied Piper.
Oh.
Two more folios from the same Ragamala. On the right is Shri Rag, an adroit musician himself, and he's so great, he knows music so well that none other than Narad, performs for him. And this is Narad performing for the king, who is personified as the Shri Rag over here. On the left is Rag Deepak, who's seen as a king and his consort. They're enjoying the Deepak Rag being played by this musician, and Deepak Rag is depicted, through the lamp and the diyas that are over here and a starlit sky. Now, it is crucial at this point to point out that pictorial sensibilities of the Chavand Ragmala that we've been looking at are rooted in the already existing indigenous, that is non-Persian or non-Mughal traditions of the 16th century that are represented by paintings of Chor Panchashika. I've labeled them also. This is Chor Panchashika, Bhagavad Puran, Lord Chanda, Geet Govinda. And this is the Chavand Ragmala that we looked at. So this is comparable, and it is part of the indigenous tradition that produced all these paintings. All these paintings share similar bold colors, prototypical figure types, relatively flattened spaces, emblematic backdrops, enhanced two-dimensionality, demarcated backgrounds, penchant for decorative details, and so on, reflecting that the Mewar Ragamala is a continuation of that indigenous artistic tradition. Now we move on a little ahead and we talk about kingship and dharma through the example of Rana Jagat Singh and artist Sahibdeen. A devout Vaishnav, Jagat Singh sponsored temples, manuscripts, and painting projects that reflected both his religious commitments and the prestige of the Mewar court. His reign is regarded as one of the great cultural moments in the history of Mewar. The partnership between Jagat Singh and artist Sahibdeen represents one of the finest examples of patronage in Indian art. This 1628 Ragmala, again, Nisardeen also painted the Ragmala, Sahibdeen also paints the Ragmala, has details of Sahibdeen, and you can see this is the colophon, the text and the colophon, and this is the detail of the colophon. And it says, I would like to show, it says Savant 1685 Varshe Aso Vad Rana Shri Jagat Singh Raje Udaipur Madhe Likhitam Chitara Sahibdeen Bachanhara Ne Ram Ram. It refers to Sahibdeen as a chitara, someone who paints. And the act of painting is termed as likhitam, translated as written, since the goal of the artist was to produce a painterly equivalent to the written verse which is inscribed on top of the painting. Under Jagat Singh, Sahibdeen produced masterpieces of Mewar school that include illustrations to the Ramayana, Bhagavad Puran, Ragamala, Rasik Priya, Geet Govind, and others. Their collaboration transformed the Mewar atelier into one of the leading artistic centers of the 17th century India. However, of them all, the Mewar Ramayana, which was painted between 1649 to 1653, stands as a testament to the shared vision of the patron and artist. I would like to show a few folios from this manuscript. We are looking at the same painting. I've marked up the areas and we'll discuss the painting now. So how does Sahibdeen work? How does he tackle an epic as complex as Ramayana, with its numerous characters, intricate narrativity, surreal temporal and spatial zones, while making it a relatable painted story. Several episodes unfold simultaneously and follow a non-linear temporality, that is, different time zones, separate geographical areas coexist in the same painting. And we've looked at that in the earlier lectures on Ajanta and the murals of the South. It does not illustrate a moment, it illustrates a narrative consciousness. I have delineated the flow of the story through numbers. The painting is, as one can see, is vertically divided, with the left depicting the battlefield and the right representing Ravana's palace. So all the incidents taking place in the palace are huddled together on the right, and the others are portrayed on the left. The painting begins, I'll just quickly go back to the one. So it begins from here. This is the second episode, moves to the third episode. That's the fourth episode, moves to the fifth, moves to the sixth, comes to the seventh here, the eighth, the ninth, and ends with the 10th. Let's look at it in detail. So it begins with here, Ravan summons Indrajit to plan a strategy to defeat Ram and Lakshman. After the strategy has been planned, he hurriedly leaves the palace of Lanka, and he, with his soldiers, is seen leaving, getting out of the palace and leaving for the battlefield. Here, Indrajit has reached the battlefield and he's seen in his aerial chariot deploying the Nagastra, where arrows transform into serpents and bind Ram and Lakshman, who are shown incapacitated while their allies, the Vanar and the Boar army, are inconsolable. Vibhishan is visible over here. He appears distressed, sharing his anxiety with Sugriva, who is right behind him, and he is differentiated from others by this strand of pearl necklace. His Indrajit triumphantly returns to Lanka. He's seen entering, the gate of the fort along with his army. And then he rushes in to the throne room to see Ravan, and he hugs him to break the good news in happiness. Moving on to the depiction of Sita. Sita doesn't know what all has happened. She is desolate in Ashok Vatika. And Trijata is sent by Ravan to go and tell Sita about what has happened in the battlefield. And Trijata is probably over here. I mean, it's not probably. She's also telling her that, you might not believe it, but I'll take you so that you can see it with your own eyes. And this conversation is hinted, by this aerial chariot, which is seen in the background. So it anticipates the moment Trijata and Sita set out for the battlefield. So they set out in that aerial chariot, that was parked in that Ashok Vatika, Trijata, and then Trijata points out on the battlefield, the condition of Ram and Lakshman. Let us look at some other folios from the same Ramayana. In this other one, Kumbhakaran is being woken up. Everyone is trying, an army of, elephants. You have a braying donkey over here. People have climbed up on his body. They're beating him with weapons. There are large piles of food, monkey heads and buffalo heads and, liquor pots and everything, and even music being played, so that he wakes up. Of course, he does wake up and then goes to the battlefield. And this is when he is killed. This is a folio where he's shown being killed. So he is huge, and he can't be killed at a go. So the artist shows, him thrice, the impact of a gigantic body falling. And you can see that And as he falls, he falls over. He's so huge. He falls over these Vanara army, and they're all crushed under his weight. And there's some kind of architecture also that's crushed. And of course, you have Ram and Lakshman overlooking. And this is the moment when it's Ram who kills Kubkaran. So he's shooting the arrow. And, there are demons who are trying to run away from the battlefield because, they realize that, they are succumbing, getting defeated, and this is jubilation in the sky. Another painting showing uh, Ram, Sita, and Lakshman going to exile. And this is the desolate, distraught Dashrath. He's shown as an old figure, who's trying to stop them. And they do not stop. And these are all the people who are also accompanying Ram, Lakshman, and Sita to the forest. This is Ram, Lakshman, and Sita entering the forest. They walk along till nightfall. You see the moon. Lakshman is guarding while Ram, Sita are sleeping. They wake up in the morning, start walking again. They meet these ascetics over there. And again, probably, at nightfall, they go back to a hermitage, where they're going to spend the night, meet other ascetics. After Ravan's death, this is Vibhishan, who's been instructed by Ram and Lakshman to make the funeral pyre, to help make the funeral pyre for Ravan. You see Ram and Lakshman again over there. That is Vibhishan, and you have the Vanaras and everybody helping collect, wooden logs. They are being piled up, in a carriage to be taken to Lanka for the funeral of Ravan. And here is the dead body of Ravan, and let's look at that closely. And these are his wives who are grieving over the death of Ravan, and this is Mandodari. And how does Sahibdin convey that this is Mandodari? She was the main queen of Ravan, and she is shown in the act of unbraiding her hair, a sign of widowhood and grief. Let us step back for a moment and visit the Mughal atelier under Akbar. In the 1580s, Akbar commissioned a Persian translation and a lavishly illustrated version of Ramayana as part of his wider program of translating major Sanskrit texts in Persian. The manuscript served both intellectual and political ends, integrating Hindu knowledge into Mughal imperial vision. Scholars remark that Akbar was drawn to how Hindus perceived the persona of Ram as an ideal ruler, one who is just, virtuous, and devoted to duty, which while he couldn't claim to be Ram, his interest in the epic was an effort to project himself as a universal sovereign whose authority transcended all boundaries. These are three folios from Akbar's Ramayana. This is Atikaya, one of the sons of Akbar, Ravan, who's sent to the battlefield. And of course, these are Ram, Lakshman, and Hanuman. This is Mandodari speaking to Ravan, and asking him to give away Sita, and this is Ram Lakshman, the waiting outside the Lanka fort. And this is Hanuman, who's come to visit Sita, but Sita thinks that, he's a demon, so she doesn't look at him. This is a comparison of the same event from the folio of Ramayana. On the left is the Mughal Ramayana, where you see Hanuman carrying the Sanjeevani, the entire mountain. And here is Sahibdin's Ramayana, where you can see him going through the expanse. He's flying over these mountains to a faraway mountain, which has Sanjeevani. He can't find the sun. He doesn't know what to get from there. So he picks up the entire mountain and he's going back. This is a detail from the same, and I've just put try to compare, this image of Hanuman with the mountain and this image of Hanuman from the Mughal Ramayana. Now, in this frame of reference, in the early 17th century, Mewar had emerged from a long period of conflict with the Mughals and was actively rebuilding its cultural identity. Jagat Singh's Ramayana was therefore not merely a religious manuscript, but a vehicle for dynastic self-representation, a model of ideal kingship, and a statement of courtly ambition painted into existence by artist Sahibdeen. This is a very beautiful painting by Sahibdeen, a very complex painting that talks about the war in Lanka. And this is the Lanka fort for Sahibdeen. He moves away from a depiction of a fort in a round fort to a kind of octagonal fort to talk about more drama. And he's seen a number of times. You have the demons fighting the Vanaras, and of course, this is Ram and Lakshman who are also part of the battle. Let us look at two more examples from the Mewar school to explore how paintings construct ways of seeing. How does the artist design the pictorial space to construct a visual parallel to the text? And how does the painting become a site of interpretation? This is Rasik Priya, painted by Sahabdeen. Translated as the Connoisseur's Delight, it is a celebrated Brajbhasha poetic text composed by Keshav Das, and it became one of the most frequently illustrated literary works in Rajput courts. It engages with Shringara Rasa and explores themes such as longing, union, separation, jealousy, devotion, and range of such emotions experienced between the Nayaka and the Naika. So let's read the poem. So this is the verse that is being painted by Sahibdeen over here. And the Naika is by herself. She's missing her beloved, the Nayaka. And she's very annoyed, because her Sakhis are trying to please her and nothing pleases her. So she says, "Show me no flowers. They are like thorns without hurry. Keep away that garland. It feels like a snake. Don't move the fan. Their scented breeze feels like ailment. Don't rub any sandalwood paste. Its coolness turns to fever on me. Don't apply any red powder, for it feels like fire burns. No pan either, for it feels like poison. Oh, dear friend." So I've tried to, mark words that are, metaphors or antonyms in the same color. Flowers appear like thorns. Garland appears, like the snake. The fan, appears like fire. The breeze is hot. It doesn't cool her. Sandalwood paste doesn't cool her. The red powder appears like fire again, and no pan either. The pan is kept over here. So objects that acted as stimulants in the Sanyog Shringar are read as deterrents in the Nayaka's absence, causing pain and agony to the Nayaka. Therefore, the presence, I think I'll go here. Therefore, the presence of such objects in the painting are to be read in contradiction to their usual connotations and are inferred as antonyms, the opposite of what it depicts. The lower space in the painting is so designed by Sahibdeen that it designates itself to these antonym metaphors, right? So you can see the garland is compared to that of the snake. So the lower space is for what it represents. The fan, feels hot. This is fire over here. And the fly whisk also has got, an orange color, which looks like flame. The pan, she's discarding the pan over here because it feels like poison. So this is the present space, and this is the space for antonyms or for comparison. This is a detail of the same. Let's go to the next painting. which is a painting from Sursagar. Sursagar is composed by Surdas. Now, this highlights the role of Krishna as a savior and protector of the world, depicted through numerous, annihilations of various demons, right? So you have the Putana Vad over here, the Bakasur Vad, the Keshi Vad, the Aghasur Vad, and then it culminates into Govardhan Dharan. The pictorial circuit ends with Krishna lifting the Govardhan mountain, under which people of the village take refuge against torrential rains that are triggered by this figure of Indra over here. You can see lightning and rain, that's pouring over here, just in this area, of the painting. The artist audaciously inserts, a kingly figure just beside the imagery, lauding the present king of Mewar and comparing him to Krishna. Through such a depiction, he pays his gratitude and compares that just as Krishna protects and saves his people, so is the grace of the Marana. Take note that the verse makes no reference to this, and this inclusion is the brainwave of the artist. We are now delving into the thought processes of artists. They are not only illustrating literary texts, but proclaiming their viewpoints aloud, be it politics, society, culture, or religion. The painting literally constructs the idea of sacred kingship through the allegory of Krishna and visualizes bhakti as an altered mode of perception. What is particularly, this is also Sursagar, what is particularly interesting in this painting of yet another folio of Sursagar is the artist's sophisticated use of space. He divides the composition into two distinct worlds, Mathura on the left and Gokul on the right, or Mathura on top and Gokul towards the bottom, that is separated by the river Yamuna, just as they really are. But the Yamuna is much more than a geographical marker. Like Krishna, Kansa, Yashoda, and the various demons, the river itself becomes an active participant in the narrative. It structures the story, connects different episodes, and functions almost as a character in its own right, guiding the viewer through Krishna's Leelas. The artist enables the sacred geography of Krishna's Karma Bhumi to become visually embodied within the pictorial space. So Krishna as a child over here with his friends, he is with Yashoda asking for food that he likes to eat, she gives him and he then goes to pasture, and here is where Bakasur Vad takes place. And as he grows older, he's invited by Kans to Mathura, and so nothing of this happens over here. The river plays as a division, in this place, just as it divides Mathura from Gokul. And he attacks one of the wrestlers. He's killed. I mean, first, of course, he attacks the Kuvalyapida, the elephant. He removes both his tusks, which are seen in his hand. He attacks one of the wrestlers with the same tusks. He climbs up to the throne room, with the same tusk in his hand, and drags Kansa down from the throne. And here he is seen enthroned, on the throne of Mathura. These are some details from the same painting because, these are beautiful details. So I'll be showing lots of details from them. You can see the tusks very clearly over here. Okay, let's move on to Bundi, gardens, music, and courtly dreams. This is where Bundi is situated in Rajasthan. Just as Mewar was ruled by the Sisodia Rajputs, it's Hada Rajputs who ruled over Bundi. And the first set of paintings from here too is the Chunar Ragmala. It's called Chunar Ragmala because it was painted at Chunar. That was commissioned by the king while he was the governor of Chunar fort under the service of Akbar. And Chunar is a place near Varanasi, right? So Bundi is in the west and Chunar is towards the eastern part of India. One would expect, because, he was the governor of he was the governor of Chunar under Akbar. One would expect that he had artists in his atelier who were trained in the Mughal court, and this is also revealed from an inscription. This is the inscription over here on the back of this painting, which says that it was painted in 1591, and it has names of artists inscribed as Sheikh Hussain, Sheikh Ali, and Sheikh Hatim. And it also says that they were pupils of famous teachers, Mir Sayyid Ali and Khwaja Abdul Samad, who were artists that Humayun had brought, from the Safavid court of Persia when he got back to India. The Muslim dervish over here in the painting is a Mughal influence. And we don't see a Muslim dervish in Kedar. Usually you would have another attendant, and we look at that later, who doesn't look like a Sufi. But here, because of the Mughal influence, we see a Muslim dervish. And this is also a personal statement of the artist, because they were all sheikhs. It is the identification of the artist as they were related to a well-known Sufi sect in Agra and a particular Sufi saint in Agra that Jahangir was revering. These are other folios from the same Ragmala text, the same Ragmala set, which is the Chunar Ragmala. So these artists at Chunar, introduced Mughal aesthetics into the Bundi school, which were, a decorative border, finer brushwork, naturalistic figures, and detailed landscape and architecture to the manuscript. In the center is Deepak Rag. We also looked at Deepak Rag in Mewar, and you can see, two diyas over here at the back and a starlit night. And this is how the Deepak Rag is labeled. All the rags are labeled. And on the right is Gunakali. Gunakali is also labeled over here, and she is the Ragini of a particular rag that is also mentioned here. And she has a plate of lotus petals in her hand, and she's, going to put them all over the bed to make it more fragrant because she's expecting her beloved at night. And that's night, and you can see the moon and the stars glittering in the sky. Chunar Ragmala became the compositional model for Ragmalas produced in Bundi over 200 years. And this is Chunar Ragmala. This one is done almost 100 years, later, and you have the same composition. This is done in the mid-17th century. This is part of a mural in a palace called Badal Mahal in Bundi, and you can see the same template that goes on, which is also a way of working because the charbas were, the tracings were kept in all ateliers, and they were a lot of times reused, giving rise to very similar looking compositions. Let's move to another artist from Bundi called the Hada master. Hada is the family for whom he is painting. By scholars, as his name is not known. He established himself as a specialist in the depiction of elephants and hunting scenes. He later moves to Kota when Kota was carved out from its parent state Bundi and becomes a master of hunting spectacles. This is another painting from Bundi, a very well-known one. It is a posthumous portrait of one of the kings, Rao Bhoj Singh, who is shown at a tiger hunt, a subject that would become one of the defining themes of Bundi painting, and even more so at the Kota school. Notice the dramatic movement the artist chooses to depict. The tiger has already killed, the bait or the goat that was kept here to lure him. And as the tiger came closer to the bait, the king shoots or kills him, shoots him, and you can see blood trickling out over here. So the goat is killed, the tiger is also hurt, and it is angry. He's turning in fury, and he climbs up to attack Bhoj Singh, and Bhoj Singh attacks it with his gun. And you have an attendant who is really scared, and he tries to scramble up the tree, and you can see the movement of scrambling, as his headgear gets unfurled. For rulers of Bundi and Kota, such hunting scenes were far more than records of royal sport. They functioned as allegories of power, portraying the ruler's ability to confront and master the forces of the wild. They do not merely represent sovereignty, they invite the viewer to experience it. Inspired by the Mughal tradition, portraiture was also explored in Bundi, and the following are some examples of paintings that depict Rao Bhav Singh. And we can see, in the details, you can see the similarity in portraits that's visible. This is another portrait of Bhav Singh, as one can see from the detail that's there. In paintings from Bundi school, animals are often depicted on a scale much larger than the rulers riding them, emphasizing the formidable power of the natural world that the king has mastered and controlled. One of the most delightful and evocative themes explored by Bundi artists is the Baramasa, or the cycle of the 12 months. At its heart, the Baramasa is about the relationship between human emotions and the changing seasons, festivals, landscapes, and activities that mark the passage of the year. Traditionally, these poems revolve around a Virahini suffering in separation from her beloved, whose longing is intensified by the beauty of the world around her. Keshav Das, who's composed the Baramasa, however, gives the theme an ingenious twist. Rather than lamenting an absent lover, his Naika tries to prevent the separation from happening at all. Month after month, she describes the pleasures and beauty of the season, gently persuading her beloved to stay back and not go. What emerges is a charming and witty reimagining of the Baramasa, where longing gives way to persuasion and emotional intelligence gives way to a beautiful painting. My all-time favorite among them is the depiction of the harsh summer. Notice how the artist has responded to it. Keshav Das says, the sun is so bright, you can see the sun over there, and scorching that air, water, sky, earth, fire have all become a hot ball of fire. The roads are deserted, tanks are parched, and even powerful creatures, become weak in this season. No one travels now. You see the travelers over here. Let's look at the detail and we'll be able to enjoy it much better. So you can see the sun, very hot and powerful creatures. So normally, the tiger and the elephant are rivals, they don't get along. They remain really far from each other. They attack each other, but they're so weak by the sun, that the tiger seeks the shelter under the huge body, of the elephant. Similarly, a snake and a peacock don't get along, but the peacock seeks shelter under the huge plume, of the peacock. The travelers are resting over here, they've covered their head and it's too hot for them to travel ahead. The water, the tanks are parched, you can see the birds. Normally they would be in water. Now you can see them completely, their forms completely, the landscape is parched and the ducks over here are enjoying the fountain, and there's a cheek curtains, that are drawn by the Nayak and the Nayika to keep their palace protected. I'll just go back a minute. Yeah, and this is where everything is unfolding. The Nayak and the Nayika is asking him not to go. We look at another painting, and this describes the month of Ashwin that roughly falls into September and October. And Keshav Das says, during this month, spirits of ancestors come down to earth to receive propitiations. Navdurgas are worshipped for success and salvation. Sky is quite clear and lotuses are in bloom. Moon illuminates the sky. Kings venture out to see their kingdoms along with Pandits, and Vishnu and Lakshmi are engaged in a celestial dance. The beloved requests her lover not to leave home, at such a time. Let's look at the details, beautiful details. Here you have the Shraddha Paksha happening for the ancestors. Lotuses are blooming. This is the king who's setting out with his soldiers, to a kingdom which is represented by a palace. Here there is a puja happening. This is Vishnu over there. And something very interesting happens over here. See, in a painting, the moon and the sun cannot be shown together. And so, to differentiate this portion of the painting, you can see the reflection of the sun in a river, which implies that the sun was shining up there, in this part of the painting. And then we move towards the upper left where the moon illuminates, you see, and Vishnu and Lakshmi are engaged in a celestial dance. And this is the beloved request the lover not to leave home. And the peacock is a very interesting metaphor because a peacock with a naika represents an absent lover. Here the peacock is shown with the peahen, and this reflects, an allegory that the naika and the naika are together. We look at Kartik, which is also very beautifully painted. Diwali falls in the month of Kartik. The sky is shining brightly, illuminated by oil lamps. Days and nights are joyous with festivities. Couples gamble. You can see the couple gambling. Celestial light pervades the entire universe, and all men and women have love in their hearts. This is the month whereby religious merit can be earned by performing sacred bath, giving alms to the poor, and worshipping God. Keshav Das says the Naika implores her lover not to leave her in the month of Kartik. Here, so let's look at the details quickly. You can see in the earlier one, they are on the terrace, right? Here they come down and it's a board game or chopar or something. Here also it's a relation, reference to gambling that the poet talks about. People are taking a religious bath and then they will go to this particular temple for worship, and then lots of lights because it is Diwali. Lanterns, they go on the terrace to look at the numerous diyas, that are decorating the architecture, the pavilion. There are stars and there are lanterns. Let's move on to its sister state or brother state, Kota, King's Wilderness, and the Painted Chase. This is Kota, that was Bundi. It's a huge area. Now, the character of Kota painting is perhaps best understood through one of its most celebrated example. This is Raja Ram Singh, one of Kota, hunting at Mukundgarh in the company of the women of his zenana. We see Ram Singh with his ladies, and we look at details over here, seated on a machan overlooking a water hole. They appear to have been waiting for hours. The sun is visible on the horizon, suggesting either dawn or dusk. As a lion and lioness approach the water hole, the king releases an arrow that pierces the lion. You can see that it has pierced the lion over here. In a dramatic display of pain and fury, the wounded animal rears up and uproots a small tree, gnawing at its bark, while the lioness roars back in the king's direction. The forest is alive with tension. You have lots of deer over here scattered across the landscape. They appear alert to the unfolding danger, their expressions heightening the atmosphere of suspense. The artist also emphasizes the remoteness of the hunt. Ram Singh is shown deep inside the forest, enclosed by dense vegetation around him, surrounded by numerous hills, and it's beyond these hills, at a distance, the fort of Kota appears, situating the royal hunt within the wider geography of the kingdom. Let's look at some close-ups. Such paintings were in great favor in Kota, as they could be perceived as a public performance of power, and the artist plays a crucial role in formulating this perception through the visuality of pictorial elements. The king becomes the center of the visual system. Everything is organized around his ability to perceive, command, and control. In the dense forest with layered terrain, the painting forces the viewer to scan the rugged expanse. One's eyes move through the intricately painted, lush landscape, searching amidst lush foliage behind rocky mountains. In effect, the viewer performs the hunt. Nature is not merely a backdrop here, it is an active agent. The forest stretching beyond the hills towards the distant Kota fort helps construct the king's identity as a hunter-ruler, embedding his sovereignty within the very ecology of the landscape. These are some more details, a detail of this area. You know, the arrow that was shot is visible here. And these are the expressive deer, you know, they are looking here and there. They know something has happened. I've kept the painting here, you know, so that the orientation is to facilitate orientation. That's the Kota fort, which is really far, far, far away from where the king is. Kota painters filled their works with keenly observed details. And this is, you know, it says when the hathi becomes mast. Animals in motion, wounded tigers and lions, dense forests, dramatic landscapes, and individualized portraits, bringing an extraordinary sensitivity, sense of vitality and realism to their works. Elephants seem to have been their favorite subject. Male elephants periodically become frenzied during their mast season, marked by a discharge from glands in the temples and by aggressive behavior. This elephant tears at his chains while his mahout tries to control him. And this is labeling what this shows. You can see the discharge from here, and I'll show you another painting. So this is a sketch that may have been used as an underdrawing for paintings such as this. And this is another lion, a cub, you know, trying to loosen itself from its chain. And you can see how beautifully the convolutions of the body and the movement, you know, is captured by the artist. Elephants frenzied in their mast season become favorite subjects for Kota artists, as mentioned earlier. This shows the coat elephant in mast with a dark secretion flowing, you know, from his temple. His animated eye swims in the vortex of fluid lines and hatchings. And we look at a detail of that. Let's move on to Bikaner. We'll talk about Anup Singh, his artist Ruknuddin, and the artistic encounter. So this is Bikaner. Bikaner school is best understood through the intertwined careers of Maharaja Anup Singh and his artist Ruknuddin. Although ruler of Bikaner, Anup Singh spent much of his life in Mughal service, campaigning in Deccan under Aurangzeb. He was appointed governor of Adoni, which is in the Deccan, where he remained until his death. Since Rajput rulers on imperial service were often accompanied by artists, scholars, musicians, and others, it is likely that Ruknuddin also traveled with Anup Singh to Adoni. Because of close ties with Deccan, Bikaner painting developed a unique fusion of Rajput, Mughal, and Deccani styles. This is Adoni, and you can see its proximity to the Deccani schools, Ahmednagar, Bidar, Bijapur, and Golconda. Ruknuddin came from a distinguished family of painters whose artistic roots can be traced to a Mughal trained artist, Ali Raza. Through this lineage, Ruknuddin inherited the refinement of Mughal paintings, its delicate drawing, elegant portraiture, and naturalism, and went on to become the leading artist of Anup Singh's court, helping define the mature style of the Bikaner school. These are paintings by Ruknuddin and Geet Govind, probably either Rasik Priya or Geet Govind, and you can see the refinement, an interest in portraiture, soft brushwork, everything that I talked about visible in these works. Painting on the right side is inscribed. You can see the inscription over here. And it says, by the hand of Rukn al-Din, and it says this is the portrait of Maharaja Anup Singh. The other person over here is referred to as a khawas, which in Persian means a trusted court member, and it mentions his name as Adoram or Aduram. The inscription is significant because it directly identifies the artist. Such inscriptions have permitted the Bikaner school to be well documented and enabled scholars identify artists and reconstruct workshop histories with precision. Court diaries record artist's name, date, place of production, and even the occasion for which a painting was commissioned. This is a Ragmala folio on the left by Ruknuddin. It represents the Kedar Rag. Kedar Ragini is frequently represented with Shaiva imagery with ascetics or devotees of Shiva. Ruknuddin here has creatively combined descriptions from various Ragmala texts and pictorial precedents to make this an evocative masterpiece. Following one text, he depicts an ascetic in penance, you can see in penance with grey ashes, listening to a disciple who is described as a young man, beauteous in every limb, sitting on a bag charma like Shiva, playing the veena. He adds from another text and says, the disciple is an ascetic whose mind is drowned in meditation on Shiva, who's crowned by the white moon. Hence, the moon over here is not merely atmospheric, but an adornment represented both metaphorically and factually. I bring here an earlier Chunar Ragmala that I already showed you, and I told you that it's only in Chunar Ragmala that this other person who's visiting the Kedar Ragini is shown as a Sufi. Otherwise, they are all shown as ascetics. And that was because, the artists had a Sufi lineage. An interesting feature of Bikaner was the development of independent artist workshops, which seem to have operated outside the royal court and were likely accessible to wealthy merchants and visitors. Bikaner's prosperity, driven by trade, pilgrimage routes, and its close ties to the Mughal Empire, helped sustain such artistic workshops. It is therefore possible that while Ruknuddin accompanied Anup Singh in the Deccan, artists in Bikaner continued to work in his manner, producing what we might call Ruknuddin style paintings. And these are those paintings that are attributed to his workshop. These workshops were called mandis, where groups of artists worked under the supervision of a master painter. Inscriptions indicate leading artists managed these workshops. Completed paintings were recorded by court archivists under the name of the master artist, Ustad, even when they were executed by pupils. Although masters often added the final touches, which is a process known as gudarai. The wide range of styles seen in paintings attributed to Ruknuddin suggests that they were likely produced in his workshop by assistants working under him. These workshops were also responsible for doing the marammat and producing knuckles, in addition to creating new works, that is restoration, and for producing copies. An intriguing aspect of Bikaner painting is its deeply literary character. Shaped by a courtly culture in which Persian poetry, Sanskrit texts, and vernacular romances circulated widely, many paintings seem to emerge from a world of reading. Rather than relying on immediate visual spectacle, they reward careful looking and invite contemplation. The king is not always depicted as a warrior charging into battle, but he can be deified, as seen in this painting as Vishnu and his consort. To conclude, Bikaner School is read as a product of a vast network connecting Rajasthan, Mughal India, and the Deccan, and the paintings themselves become evidence of this movement. It opens up an unconventional trajectory for examining how artistic identity emerges through cultural exchange and through artists working across multiple visual traditions. Its painters were not merely preserving tradition, they were participating in cultural conversations. What emerges is that Bikaner challenges fixed categories and reveals that artistic identity is not inherited, it is negotiated, right? And you can see a lot of, Mughal elements, Rajasthani elements, and Deccani elements in this painting as well. Let's move on to the Kishangarh school, the poet, the muse, and the painter. Kishangarh is a very small kingdom, so instead of the circle, I'm showing it as a dot. Kishangarh is remembered for an extraordinary triad. The poet Prince Sawan Singh, who ruled between 1748 to 1757, just to give you, a marker, because till now we were talking about the 17th century, we are now talking about the 18th century. So the poet Prince Sawan Singh, Bani Thani the muse, and Nihal Chand the painter. In the mid-18th century, a small Rajput kingdom of Kishangarh came under the patronage of Maharaja Sawan Singh. Unlike many Rajput rulers who sought fame through warfare or statecraft, Sawan Singh was drawn to poetry, music, and devotion. Writing under the pen name Nagari Das, he composed Brajbhasha verses celebrating the love and mystical longing of Radha and Krishna. His court became a place where poetry, religion, and art were intimately connected. Among the figures at court was a talented singer and poet, later known as Bani Thani, the well-adorned one. Although her actual name remains uncertain, some say it was Vishnu Priya. Contemporary accounts remember her as cultured, accomplished, and deeply involved in the artistic life of the court. Over time, she became Sawan Singh's closest companion. Yet what makes their story remarkable is that it was never understood merely as a courtly romance. Immersed in the devotional culture of Vaishnavism, Sawan Singh increasingly imagined himself as Krishna and Bani Thani as Radha. Their relationship was reinterpreted through the sacred language of bhakti, where earthly love became a pathway to divine love. It was the court painter Nihal Chand who gave this vision visual form, allowing personal devotion, courtly romance, and Vaishnav spirituality to merge. Drawing upon Sawan Singh's poetry and devotional imagination, he created some of the most celebrated images in Indian art. In his paintings, Bani Thani was transformed from a historical woman into an idealized embodiment of beauty, devotion, and longing. Her arched eyebrows, lotus-like eyes, elongated profile, and ethereal grace became the defining features of Kishangarh style. The story acquired an almost legendary quality in Sawan Singh's later years. Increasingly, it is enchanted with politics. He eventually withdrew from active kingship and spent much of his life in Vrindavan, the sacred land of Krishna. Bani Thani accompanied him and together they pursued a life centered on devotion. Paintings such as Sawan Singh and Bani Thani as Krishna and Radha, as this one, are not records of romance, but are seen as acts of self-fashioning. Through painting, Sawan Singh abandons the idea of a historical king and assumes a devotional one, recasting himself within the sacred world of Krishna. This is the painting and this is the detail. This painting illustrates Sawan Singh's poem Nikunj Leela. Nihal Chand depicts the divine love play of Krishna and Radha in the sacred grove. When Sawan Singh appears as Krishna or Banithani as Radha, the question is no longer who is being depicted, but how are they being perceived? They cease to be portraits and transform into sacred beings through the lens of bhakti, shifting our attention from identity to vision. In the Vaishnava tradition, darshan is not simply seeing, but divine also being seen by. I'm sorry, I'll just read that again. In the Vaishnava tradition, darshan is not simply seeing the divine, but also being seen by it. This transforms the function of the image. The painting becomes not a record of appearance, but a vehicle for contemplation and spiritual encounter. The verse at the back of this painting says, "The night passed lying in pleasure and comfort. When dawn came, the Sakhis came together. Sweet and skillful Lalita played the veena. The wondrous rag vibhas spread all over. Around the grove, the birds chirped. Cool breeze flowed, touching the pollen, the lotuses, and the water." So just we look at the painting closely and we can see, the moment when the night has passed in pleasure and comfort, the morning happens and you see the Sakhis coming together. Here, Lalita is seen with the veena, just as the verse says, somebody else is seen with a dholak, right? And she's playing the wondrous Vibhas rag. And by the way, Vibhas rag is an early morning rag. So they are playing that in the grove. And this is the cool breeze flowed, touching the pollen, the lotuses, and the water. So the cool breeze flows on to the couple. It's a scented, cool breeze that flows on to the couple. And here you have the birds chirp. The landscape here again by Nihal Chand of Kishangarh seamlessly blends the palaces, forts, and the Gundalao Lake of Kishangarh into the sacred geography of Braj, while Radha and Krishna themselves are envisioned as a Rajput prince and princess. So they are Radha and Krishna, and they are also Banithani and Sawan Singh.
Sorry, Dr. Soda, to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
of course, because of that technical glitch in the beginning, can we speed up a little because I think our second speaker will be waiting then.
I'll do that. I'll do that.
Yeah,
So we just look at the details over here and quickly go to the last school, which is Jaipur. So few rulers in Rajasthan shaped the artistic identity of their court so profoundly, and few schools of painting are so completely infused with the vision of a single patron as Sawan Singh. I'll quickly conclude with the Jaipur school. I call it Raga and Image. This is Jaipur. Through these examples, I'll be talking about the Ragmala paintings from the Jaipur school, datable to the mid-18th century. Through these examples, I discuss the politics of representation, and I'll be talking about Raginis Devgandhari, Sheet Malhar, and Kedaro. So this is Devgandhar, and this is the text that is written up there. And she is a Virahini, so she's seen as an ascetic. This is Ragini Sheetmalhar. She's also a Virahini. And, this is the description that, she's adopted, she is smeared with ash. All these Raginis are smeared with ash and they wear a deer skin and their mats are unkempt, and they become shabby. And this is Ragini Kedaro, which we have been looking at till now. And they're all seen as kind of ascetics. This is a comparison of them. Now, all these Raginis represent the class of Virahini Naikas who have shunned all pleasures, comforts, in sheer distress, are agonized in the absence of their beloveds, and have taken to austerities, developing utter disdain towards their physical appearance, or have become ascetics and appear unsightly, dismally dressed and emaciated. The genre of women ascetics is not a socially sanctioned entity in a patriarchal society. History is abound with accounts of ostracized behavior women saints have undergone as a marginalized group in a bigoted society. Approval of such disparagement for life and will to disregard the world goes against the social construct of a normative woman. As a result, no prototype existed in visual vocabulary of such a Naika. The understanding of an ascetic is tantamount to be a male. In the absence of a normative visual device to depict a woman ascetic, the artist in all these ragamalas, though they are depicting raginis, they're always showing a male instead of a woman. The last part, which is Ragamala as documents recording the music culture of respective courts. Here, it's the same Ragamala set that I'm talking about, and I'll just show you some folios. This is a folio from Bhairav, and I'm talking about, the like. Just look at the musicians who are playing over here. This is from the same set, Malcons and the musicians who are playing here, and they look alike. Okay, they look alike. They are similar. This is Malashri, Madhu Madhvi, I'm sorry. And we looked at Malcons, Malashri, Madhu Madhvi. So we see that this fellow is the same, this musician is the same as this one. He is the same as this one. This lady is the same as this one. And she looks exactly like this one. So this group represents the same youthful couple, the man playing the stringed instrument, sporting an identical headgear, and has a distinguishing twirl of hair framing his profile. The woman accompanies him on pakhavaj or a manjira or the duff. Similarly, you have in other paintings the musicians looking similar to other paintings, right? So here these two musicians look alike. And from the third painting also, they look alike. So the most distinctive aspect of this particular set is the consistent depiction of musicians in the pictorial tableau. They are invariably accompanied with the Bina, Tanpura, Ektara, the Pakhavaj or Mridanga, and the cymbals or Manjira, and occasionally the duff. Musical instruments carried by them are particularly significant as they shed light on the dominant musical tradition, that of Dhrupad, being practiced in the Jaipur court in the 18th century. Presence of these musicians throughout the set transforms the motif into a pictorial device that substantiates and welds the tradition of performance with that of painting in the courts. A closer look reveals similitude and uniformity in the facial features. Several portraits of musicians from the Gunijan Khana with their names inscribed are known, which go to confirm that there was a tradition of recording likenesses of musicians and dancers as much as ministers, kings, and other dignitaries. Chitera Ramjidas has painted kalavans, that is ustads, and number of musicians are named. So in all possibility, the musicians depicted in the above paintings represent, one of the musicians that are recorded in the records of Jaipur. And with this, I end my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Rita Soda, for this fascinating presentation.
If you can just, thank you. And that was so, I can't even tell you how amazing. We got a glimpse of so many Rajasthans, beautiful patrons, devotees, poetry. I think music will no longer be something we hear. It will always be something we see now, and all brought alive so beautifully by the artist mastery. Just too good. I think let's quickly move on to the question answer session. Moderating today's question answer session will be Rajgopal, a software professional and a consultant in the field of education. Rajgopal is also a passionate student of heritage, a connoisseur of Carnatic music, and a long-time volunteer of Tamil Heritage Trust. Over to you, Rajagopal. You can take over.
Thank you, Gauri, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to be moderating this fascinating talk. Wonderful talk, as you mentioned, Gauri. In the interest of time, we will run through the questions really quickly. The next speaker is waiting, I guess. First question from Rajini Devarajan. A brilliant journey through Rajasthani miniatures. Thank you, ma'am. It's more of an appreciation. Now she says she can appreciate the miniatures much more. That's a comment made by Rajini. Her question was, in the Ragamalika paintings, different instruments are shown. What are the various instruments portrayed? I think the latest slides, we did see some of the instruments, but quickly, if you can share the various instruments that were portrayed.
So, as a scholar of Indian painting, we are confounded by certain questions, and one of the questions which usually springs up is whether, we are Rajasthani courts were practicing Hindustani or Drupad music. And so these paintings then become a lens through which you get to know that what are these musicians playing, because I showed you many Ragmala paintings, but all of them do not have musicians who are playing, so this particular folio talks about a performance that's actually happening in the Jaipur court. Because there are records of, these were the musicians, they were paid so much and so on and so forth. So if we look at this particular folio, we get to know that all the instruments, whether it's a pakhavaj or the stringed instrument, which is the veena or the manjira, or sometimes you have the mridangam also, there's no tabla over here. This is distinguishing that it's Drupad, which is being practiced as late as the 18th century in the Jaipur court. But if that is not the question, then it's okay for an artist, to show any musical instrument, but usually you don't see tablas or anything, in the Ragmala paintings over here. There are very interesting records in Jaipur, where and the Jaipur kings, especially who are contemporary to this particular set, they were musicologists. They are writing texts on Ragamala, they are inviting musicologists, they are restoring old texts. Savai Pratap Singh himself wrote a particular text, and there is record that he also got it painted. And there is record that earlier kings like Man Singh, Tansen used to perform in their court. He had sent his son to Tulsidas, for tuitions, So we have a very interesting connection.
Even Sri Rag, I think, was a king, no? Who used to sing?
Sri Rag and Malkons are both kings. Malkons also enjoys music, but Sri Rag is a great singer, a great musician. So it's only Narad, who is even better than him, who performs. They become a team who can, enjoy music together. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Question from
Yeah.
Sorry, did we lose it? So there's a question from Divya. What, if any, was the impact of Muslim artists illustrating Hindu texts?
So, as an art historian, we don't play up, a Hindu artist and a Muslim artist. What are we understanding is where is this artist coming from? So for instance, if I began with Mewar and I showed you Nisardin and Sahibdin, both were Muslims, but Nisardin is painting exactly in the tradition of pre-Rajasthani painting, which has nothing to do with Mughal or Persianite tradition. Though Mughal and the Persian tradition was already there. You see that in Nimat Nama and the Jaunpur Kalpasutra that the scholar showed us yesterday. So we are not interested in whether it's Muslim or Indian. See, we have to understand that when Mughal Akbar expanded his court, most of his artists were Hindu artists, Indian artists. He had very few artists who had come from Persia. And it is these Indian artists, I won't call them Hindu artists, Indian artists, who knew the pre-Rajasthani tradition of Chaur Panchashika and all, they are looking at Persian elements, and they like certain Persian elements and they are bringing it in their works. So if you look at Akbar, it's like an axis. This is how I talk to my students, where you have very Persian paintings on one hand and very indigenous paintings on one hand. And many sets, all sets are placed, on this axis with Persian and Indian influences. So Sahib Deen, who comes to Mewar, certainly has an exposure to the sub-imperial Mughal atelier. Sub-imperial Mughal is a we coined that nomenclature that while Mughal is happening in the imperial court, everybody under the Mughals, are also getting paintings done, the Rajasthan and all the nobles and everybody. That's the sub-imperial Mughal style. So it has resonances, of what was happening in Akbar's court. But the colors are very, very indigenous. Even when Sahabdin is concerned, his narrative logic is very, very indigenous, like we see in Bhagavad Puran, right? That has nothing to do with the Mughal style. So we don't talk about, Muslim. But yeah, when I talked about the Chunar Ragmala, the person is seen
Sufi,
as Sufi, because,
Yeah.
this is self-identification of the artist. He is not showing himself to be Muslim, but he's showing himself to be associated to a certain Sufi
Yeah.
sect.
I had a small
Oh.
question, Rajgopal. I wanted to first of all ask you, what is the size of these paintings, especially the Sursagar and all that you showed? Secondly, did they all paint only on paper, or did they also paint on palm leaves and cloth, etc.?
Yeah. So, the the paintings that I showed you, or what we call the miniature painting tradition, begins from the late 16th century. 1591 is the kind of, all of them are on paper. All of them are on paper, right? You only have the palm leaf examples in the 12th, 11th, and the 12th centuries, and they continue in the Jain. But even Jain, from 1350 onwards, you have paper. Paper takes over. But murals are happening at the same time. In the same palaces, they're happening in temples and everywhere. And the size varies, So if I begin from early time like Mewar, it would be about, about 12 inches by 10 inches or something with a little frame around it. But
About
they can
A3?
be larger, about A3 or a little
Smaller.
larger than A3 also, because, they are both on a vertical format and a horizontal format. So usually in the 17th century, early 18th century, a smaller format happens. But then paintings start getting big, and this is also, they say, the influence of, courtly themes, entering into Rajasthan. What I showed today were not courtly themes. I was just talking about literary text because that's where interpretation.
But those Sursagar and all with so many details, they are only about A3?
Yes.
Oh,
That's
amazing.
yeah.
Because
Only
such fantastic detailing and so many
a little
narratives
more
in
than
that.
A3, but certainly not, not half imperial or something like that. Yeah.
One
And
last question.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
carry on.
That's why,
Yeah.
I showed the details wherever, because otherwise it's impossible to enjoy the painting, if you really don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that Saran Sharma ji is already waiting. So I'll wrap this with one last question. How did this Ragini tradition evolve? And do we see parallels of this tradition elsewhere in India? Ragas being depicted with, such finesse and such beauty and such variety, covering
Yeah.
so many ragas.
Yeah. So it's what may appear through my presentation today, that it's just ragmalas that were painted. That's not the right perception. Ragmala becomes part of the whole range of literary texts, like Geet Govind, like the Rasik Priya, like the Rasa Manjari, or love stories, or whatever. These are the literary Bhagavad Puran, Ramayan. Ragmala is one of them, and because it has those interpretative uh, abilities, I And they happen to be the dated paintings, so the story of the school begins from there. So it was important to show these ragas.
Oh.
So it's part of the other paintings happening, and they happen in Pahari school. They also happen in the Deccan schools. They also
Oh.
happen in Awadh, later.
Oh.
And they happen all over
So
Rajasthan. So
Ragamalika is there in all the regional painting styles.
in all the schools, it was a very, it was a favorite. It was one of the favorite. Like Rasik Priya is painted in all schools. Geet Gobind is painted in all schools. Bhagavad Puran is painted in all schools. Ramayana is painted in all schools.
Yeah, and Rajput, do you have a concluding question?
No, that's it. I think we'll have to go
I
look
had a
up.
small question to ask you. This Artilaya concept or the idea of having a workshop, I had already thought about that only. That probably the master painter only did the major idea and then the filling in was done by the students or whatever. When did this start, actually? Was it there even during Mewat time?
It was always there. It was always there. It's not just that's the, and that's why, Indian art history was kind of, talked at in a different way, that there's no genius artist, who's there. But Indian art worked through guilds. You always
Okay.
had, it's a guru shishya thing, which percolates through many systems in life. And but it gets illustrated, or it gets better known through the Mughal courts, because they have records.
Yeah.
Mewar and all don't have records, but we know that's the way of working. And it's interesting because that's how, just as we understand tribal painting, or rather we understand cave painting, through the tribal paintings today, through the way present people work, we understand how their ancestors worked.
Yeah.
So the lineage is still existing in Rajasthan, and it was always a teamwork. Somebody, and it's not just a teamwork of an artist. The Ramayana is a book, it's a manuscript. Somebody is pulling it out from the library, and there are 10 Ramayans probably over there. Somebody is deciding which verses are to be painted. Then somebody is discussing, okay, what is the design of this folio going to be? Somebody is just doing the drawings, somebody is just doing the landscape, somebody is doing just the jewelry, somebody is just doing the writing. And this is how it evolved.
Which is also why they were so proliferous. If it was an
Yeah.
individual, they may not have been able to produce so many paintings as well.
True.
Yeah.
True.
I think with that, we'll conclude this talk. Yeah, once again, thank you so much. It was visually and really, really brilliant. And we learned so much. And thank you for answering all
Sorry
our...
for delaying it.
No, that's perfectly okay.
Thank
All
you
part
very
of
much.
the game. Yeah.
Thank you very
Thank you so much. I think
Bye-bye.
we'll quickly move on to the next talk. Just 1 second, sir. Just 1 minute. Sorry. Sorry, I switched it. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I switched off my screen. Yeah, that brings us to the end of a wonderful talk on Rajasthani paintings. From there, we move on to our next talk today, to the foothills of Himalayas. Our second talk today is called The Divine Intimate, Love and Devotion in Pahari Paintings, and is being delivered by Dr. Sarang Sharma, who's a Tagore Research Scholar, Government Museum and Art Gallery, Chandigarh. Pahari painting is celebrated for its lyrical beauty, emotional depth, and profound engagement with themes of love and devotion. In these works, the divine is not distant or inaccessible, but deeply human, intimate, and emotionally present. In his lecture titled The Divine Intimate, Love and Devotion in Pahari Painting, Dr. Sarang Sharma explores how artists of the Pahari region transformed spiritual experience into some of the most moving and evocative images in the history of Indian art. A little bit about him. Dr. Sharma is an art historian specializing in the painting traditions of the northwestern Himalayas. His research explores the intersections of devotion, politics, emotion, and visual culture in early modern Indian painting, with particular emphasis on Pahari art. He has lectured internationally on Indian and Islamic art and collaborated with institutions, including the Cleveland Museum of Art and the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of Asian Art. Currently a Tagore Research Scholar at the Government Museum and Art Gallery, Chandigarh, his ongoing research examines the political and social dimensions of imagery in Pahari painting. A very warm welcome to you, Saran. The screen is yours.
Thank you so much for having me here. And that is particularly special because defying all odds, I was finally able to make it.
Yeah.
Given my prior engagements, I was not certain whether I shall be able to participate in
Yeah.
this fantastic symposium or not. But
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah.
So let me quickly share my
Yeah.
presentation.
And we are, of course, really, really happy to have you here.
Thank you very much. Okay. Is it visible?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I think, no, 1 second. You also want to be in the presenter's mode?
Yeah,
Just a moment.
if you could go to slideshow, please. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, all right. So the motivation to analyze the confluence of divinity within intimacy in Pahari painting came from my recent rereading of Kumaraswamy. And by rereading, I mean reading Rajput painting for the 50th time. When I was recently studying Kumaraswamy's Rajput painting, a seminal text on paintings of Rajasthan and the Pahari region, so two things stuck with me during this read. So this statement that he makes, what Chinese art achieved for landscape is here accomplished for human love. So whatever is represented in Pahari painting through the paradigms of love and intimacy is unsurpassable and it is second to none. And the second thing that he says within the same paragraph is this art is only concerned with the realities of love above all, with passionate love service conceived as the means and symbol of all union. So everything becomes one, and one is everything. The perfect balance between Purusha and Prakriti, the masculine and feminine, is achieved in Pahari miniature painting. Now, in order to study whatever has Kumaraswamy said, if I have to present a picture to complement Kumaraswamy's words, then nothing comes better than this painting to analyze whatever must have been happening in late 18th century Kangra when it comes to the transfiguration of love and intimacy with divinity. So the atmosphere of a typical court situation in Kangra, you have a wonderful representation of the spring season. So as you can see, cherry blossoms are emerging in the back. There's a clear blue sky, probably early hours of the dawn or maybe the evening. You sit in a marble chamber, a balcony of a fantastic 18th century North Indian palace, sheltered under the canopy of fine Kashmiri shamianas. Right within that balcony is a cascading fountain with ducks treading water in it. But the sound of this water sprinkling into the pond is dissolved into the loving whispers of confidants as they playfully share whispering secrets as they are tending to you and your beloved who sit in fine intimacy with each other. Now, the male right here, probably a prince, a Katosh prince, he is sitting in a close, intimate union with either the princess or maybe his favorite courtesan or a lover in any case, and he absent-mindedly glides a hand forward, which is complemented by a maiden presenting him a pandan. Now, whether he needs the pan or not is purely based on his own disposition. His confidant, on the other hand, lovingly kisses a betel leaf and offers it to him as a loving, intimate offering. And then the gaze gets fixated so much on each other that they are absolutely inseparable. When we consider this painting on the whole, this is a fantastic representation of Shringara in the Vilasa form. Vilasa, of course, means leisure, which is further expanded into Samyog, which is love in union. And love in union is celebrated in Indian aesthetic theory since the time of Bharata, Bharata's Natya Shastra, as a wonderful display of love. But a purer form of love, according to Bharata Muni himself, is when love is experienced in Virha or in Vipralambha. So here is a fantastic representation of a Virahini Naika, which is a Naika facing pangs of separation from her beloved, as she sits on the banks of a lotus pond, steadfastly clenching upon a lotus leaf, which are infamous for being extremely slippery, and as drops of dew slip away from leaves of the lotus flower, similarly, love is also slipping away from her grasp, and she is steadfastly trying to hold on to it while it lasts. If we look towards the top of the painting, we are welcomed by two trees that extend their support, their emotional support to the Nike underneath, serving as a shelter, almost providing a shelter. And the way that the branches are drooping down, it's almost they're also shedding tears of sorrow along with the Nika in question. Now, this was the case of love in Pahari miniature painting, but Pahari paintings have they also serve another purpose, which is the devotional aspect of it, as we can see in this fantastic small domestic temple in an old Chamba household, that along with modern representations of popular deities, there are some old Pahari miniature paintings that are also enveloped within picture frames. This is the domestic house temple of Pandit Bhuvaneshwar Sharma in the old neighborhood of Chontara at Chamba town. And this leads to the inquiry of how divinity and intimacy have been a two-way confluence for painters of the Pahari region, how this challenge was adopted successfully by these masters of their craft. And in order to study this, I take the case study of Krishna, then the case of Rama, and of course, the fantastic case of Shiva. Now, when we speak of Krishna, of course, when we study Krishna from various sources, whether it is the Bhagavata Purana or the Mahabharata, the Harivansha, Satsai of Bihari, Geet Govind of Jayadeva, Rasamanjari of Bhanudatta, there are several Krishnas that we encounter on our way. There is not one Krishna. But if we consider the entire trajectory of the life of Krishna, he starts as a child hero when he annihilates demons terrorizing the Gokul region. Then he comes of age and he becomes a lover boy, getting into dalliance with the fine gopis in the enchanting forest of Vrindavan. And then he is coronated as the king of Dwarka, and he emerges as a Yadava king. And finally, he's the epitome of Krishna's evolution is manifested, is culminated in his emergence as the great philosopher in the battlefield of Mahabharata. And when Krishna delivers his wisdom upon Arjuna, giving him the divine sight, now he introduces a fourfold path in order to achieve salvation. He proposes the Jnana Yoga or the Jnana Marga, which is achieving salvation by receiving wisdom. He proposes the Karma Marga, that performing action also leads to release from this chain of births. Then there is the Dhyana Marga, which is through meditation or yoga that one is able to achieve the ultimate wisdom. And finally, there is Bhakti, which is pleasing your deity or pleasing the Supreme, the Paramatma, through devotion. And this devotion contains extreme supplication or complete subjugation, killing yourself, self-annihilation, and dissolving yourself into the deity. And bhakti has emerged over time as the most mainstream of ways to appease to the Lord. Now, bhakti reaches the Pahari region in the late 16th, early 17th century with the establishment of Vaishnava mathas in the region. Prior to it, the Pahari neighboring states, more or less, were completely in a state of isolation, quite cut off from the external world. And it's only after coming into direct contact with the centralized imperial government, which was the reign of Akbar, that they opened their gates to the outside world to penetrate the hills. This was also the times that several priests, they started migrating towards the hill states, and this is when the Vaishnava mathas were established in the region. And very soon, these Vaishnava mathas started receiving regal patronage. And as we can see in this case right here, in the right, we have two Vaishnava saints, Bhagwanji and Narayanji. And on the left, we have Prince Chhatar Singh, future Raja Chhatar Singh of Chamba, in supplication to Sant Narayanji. Now, when these saints they came to the region, they also brought along with themselves bhakti literature from the plains. And among the most popular, as we can see, with the multiple volumes of it that we receive from different Pahari states over the course of period, is the Gita Govinda. And it is in the Gita Govinda that the manifestation appears for the first time, that the Atma and the Paramatma, described as a non-singular entity, leads to the ultimate manifestation of the deliverance of a spirit. So Radha symbolically becomes the manifestation of the Atma, or the mundane spirit, and Krishna emerges as the ultimate Paramatma, the supreme spirit, and through their romantic union, the dalliance of love, that the salvation or the moksha starts to occur. Now the Ashtapadis mentioned in the Gita Govinda deal with this ultimate subjugation of the Atma into the Paramatma, and all the episodes where Radha becomes angry with Krishna, Krishna faces pangs of separation from Radha, they're all ultimately manifested into that romantic union, that samyoga or even the sambhoga between Radha and Krishna, acting as the ultimate manifestation. Now, in several cases where the Atma and the Paramatma are not able to manifest themselves into each other in order to lead to the ultimate supplication, to lead to the ultimate salvation, then the Sakhi performs an important role in this regard, which facilitates the union of the Atma with the Paramatma. And and from this point of view, the Sakhi takes the position of a guru, a Vaishnava guru, that leads the Atma towards the Paramatma. Now, this Atma and Paramatma union, it is not a one-way road, rather, it's a two-way thing. So, while Radha faces pangs of separation from Krishna, which is an Atma getting restless when it is not able to manifest itself into the Paramatma, the Paramatma is also equally anxious about supplicating itself or submerging itself into the Atma. So this union is a two-way thing. The lover and the loved, the mashuk and the ashik, as they call it in Sufi terminology, they are equally passionate and anxious for each other. So whenever we see a Pahari painting depicting Radha and Krishna in an amorous setting, it is usually the moksha which is symbolized or described to us through symbolic gesture. So this union, the successful romantic union that occurs between Radha and Krishna, it's a fantastic painting, by the way. It's only symbolizing the union of the Atma into the Paramatma. With the course of time, the same ideology, the same principles of Jayadeva were propagated by future poets such as Jayadeva, Bhanudatta, then we have Keshavadasa and the poet Sundar, who wrote Sundar Shringar. And it is also at this point that this line of poetry became mainstream, as in it started receiving regal patronage. So the poet Sundar, as he writes in the opening of the Sundar Shringar, he credits his writing to the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan. He says, Shah Jahan gave countless wealth to skilled men, and among them he honored the fine poet Sundar with much respect. He gave gemstones, ornaments, a land settlement, horses, elephants, a set of clothing. First, he gave the title King of Poets, which is Kaviraj, and then the Emperor of Poet, Kavi Samrat. The King of Poets, Sundar himself, is a Brahmin and a resident of Gwalior city, and the emperor looks upon him with favor and is kindly. And soon following suit, many of these Pahari Rajas also started patronizing poets in their own courts. Let us take the case of a few paintings based on Braj Vaishnava Bhakti literature, as is the case of this particular episode from the Bihari Satsai, in which the poet says, while Krishna was combing the hair of Radha one fine morning, Radha started growing restless, not being able to see Krishna for a long time. So, in order to satiate her angst to see her beloved, she put on a mirror ring and started looking at the reflection of Krishna into the mirror. And this is how she was able to see Krishna's face, Krishna's beautiful face. So, again, from a philosophical point of view, it is the Atma that starts getting restless when it is not able to see a glimpse of the Paramatma. And so, since this manifestation is anything but natural, so the Atma shall look for a way on its own to get itself manifested into the Paramatma. And this ultimate self-annihilating aspect of Radha's personality right here coming into play, that she's able to finally see Krishna through hook or by crook. Now, here is another painting, but instead of showing Radha's affection for Krishna, it is vice versa, how the Paramatma reaches out in order to have a Shringara union with the Atma. So, this is the Pushpalila, or tossing of the flower. So, one fine day, while playing in the courtyard of their house, Krishna tosses a flower high in the air, and Radha, in order to catch it, she leaps forward. And while she leaps forth, her dupatta, her orni, gets out of the way, revealing her fine abdominal muscles. And Krishna quickly caught a glimpse of her abdomen, and his sight, interestingly, climbed up on the staircase that was created by her abdominal muscles and finally rested upon her bosoms. And this is how Krishna was able to see Radha's breasts. So, a very lovely couplet and equally fantastic painting that has been manifested by the painter. Now, this is Swadhina Patika Naika, and this painting is based on Keshav Das's Rasika Priya. And Swadhina Patika Naika is a Naika who has her lover or her husband under her command. So from this point of view, Radha is put atop a pedestal, and Krishna becomes but her subservient in the process. So one time when Krishna was putting Mahavar on Radha's feet, the Sakhi, Radha's confidant, she immediately crashed upon at the scene, and she remarked, she says, he is the one, Krishna is the one who is the Lord of them all, and all the mothers and fathers of Vrindavan, of Braj, shall not hesitate to sacrifice their daughters onto Krishna. And you, the daughter of but a filthy villager, how come you have the dare to ask Krishna to put Mahavar on your feet? Since I am known to you two, I know the kind of equation that you two share. But had it been somebody else who was unfamiliar with the arrangement that you two have, they would have done nothing but chided you. So this is what Swadhina Patika Naika attribution by Keshav Das's read. And if we look at the painting, so in a fine campus of an urban setting, here we have the beautiful Radha sitting on a golden seat, and she extends one leg out, and Krishna, like a fine artist, he carefully paints her toes with a Mahavar. And here is the Duti, the Sakhi, you can see catching Radha's mischief. Lovely painting. But among my very favorite paintings are, of course, the Basoli Rasamanjari paintings. Now, here's a representation of the Abhisarika Naika. Now, Abhisarika is the one who steps out of her house in the middle of the night while it is raining torrentially. Thunderous flashes could be seen in the sky. Snakes are crawling on the ground. Goblins are wandering about. And yet the Naika giving no heed, paying no heed to whatever comes her way. And she is single-mindedly moving towards Krishna, or the Nayaka in this case, whom the painter has attributed to be Krishna. Now, since she's a Madhya Nayika, so her desire to make love to the Nayaka as well as her shyness are in equal measures. So while she was facing all those hurdles, she had put up a brave face, but finally now when she is right here in the front of Krishna, her shyness has taken over. So Krishna as Nayaka asks the Nayika, "O Naike, you faces all these troubles on your way here, and finally when you are here right in front of me in my company, you start trembling at my mere touch. So what is this dichotomy?" And this is what the Naika is about. So this is what adds the pleasure, the intimate pleasure in the painting. So she was facing all the hurdles. Now finally, when she has seen Krishna himself, so now she's getting all hesitant. This is Ratipriya Naika. So Ratipriya Naika is the one who is very much fond of making love, and she does not want the night to end. So one fine night, while Krishna and the Naika were in a cold embrace, and Krishna had put her lips upon the Naika's lips. Krishna was fondling her breasts with her hands, and the leg was upon another leg. And they were in such a close embrace that suddenly the break of dawn starts to occur. And Krishna anxiously asks the Naika whether the dawn has broken yet. And Naika, not wanting Krishna to leave her premise, she takes the palm of her hands and she hides the lotus buds that she has used to decorate her ears, so that when the sun rises, the lotus don't start blooming up and Krishna sees them bloomed up. So a fantastic representation. Equally beautiful a verse as the painting itself is. So a fantastic painting complemented by a fantastic poetic verse. And this is slightly humorous one. So it talks about the jester friend, or the friend with a sense of humor, the Vidushaka Sakha. So instead of a Sakhi, we have Sakha now. And in this painting, Krishna as a Nayaka is complaining to another to one of his friends. And he says, you should tell our other friend to mind his ways, because whatever he's doing is not right and it does not go well with me. So last night, when I was with the Naika, and we had just started getting amorous in our intimacy, the Sakha, he stood outside my door and he started crowing like a rooster. And then the Naika, believing that the dawn has arrived, she immediately got up and started putting on her clothes. And it is because of him that I could not satisfy my intimate desires last night. So, a very funny take, a very interesting painting as well. As you can see, the painter has masterfully trifurcated the space into three panels. So on the left, we have Krishna and the Sakha talking outside their premise. Then inside, you have the situation that is described by Krishna to the Sakha, that they were in the bed, and then the Sakha started crowing, and the Naika, she starts putting on her clothes. Lovely painting. A similarly lovely painting. This is Sakshat Darshana. So all this time, the Naika was contemplating seeing the Nayaka. And finally, the Nayaka has arrived. But instead of arriving in his natural state, the Nayaka has arrived as Krishna. And when this darshana of Krishna has occurred, so Naika is not able to calm her, she's not able to she's not able to put control over her senses on seeing Krishna manifested in the in the flesh. So she talks to herself. She says, "Oh, my relentless senses, please try to control yourselves. Oh, my eyes, pay no heed to my restless mind and be steadfast in your sight. Oh, my trembling heart, try to control your pace. Uh, oh my God, all the mistakes that I have made till this day, please let me repent for another moment, another second, because finally I have been able to see Krishna in my life." So this is Sakshat Darshana, among the last verses of the Rasamanjari of Bhanudatta. Here is the Naika talking to herself, and there is Krishna who has arrived as the Nayaka. Now, when we compare Krishna to Rama, Rama's character and Rama's disposition as an incarnation of Vishnu is much linear. So, if we consider the important events from the life of Rama, so he also emerges as a boy hero when he annihilates Tataka. And then immediately after marrying Sita, when he's supposed to be coronated, he is sent on an exile. While on exile in the Dantaka forest, he encounters demons of different sides, of different sorts. And finally, after the slaying of Ravana, after fulfilling the purpose of his incarnation, he returns to Ayodhya and is then coronated. But the painters of the Pahari Hills, they have still managed to, in many cases, invent episodes to suggest the tale of Rama and put intimacy or love in it, or in many cases, they have played with whatever existed in the corpus of Valmiki's Ramayana, and they have then planted episodes on their own. For example, here's a scene in which Lakshmana removes a thorn from Rama's foot. Now, this episode does not exist in Valmiki's Ramayana. Rather, it appears as if the painter himself has invented this situation. It's a Chamba painting from the 1700. And you can see Rama lies here and apparently in great agony, as indicated by his twisting form. And Lakshmana appears in the situation thrice. So first he holds Rama by his shoulders, trying to gently place him onto the floor, onto the ground. And then here is Lakshmana again, supporting Rama. And in the third instance, Lakshmana can be seen removing the thorn from Rama's foot. So he appears thrice in the composition. The artist is attempting to play with space and time in the composition, and the composition is supported by Sugriva and Jamvanto, and it is apparently happening inside a beautiful grove within the forest. Now, not a part of the mainstream Ramayana text of Valmiki, planted, of course, by the painter. The same episode is visited once again, and this time we see that Lakshmana is removing thorn from Rama's foot, and Rama lies here in great agony, and Rama is also supported by Sita in this case. Now, from a timeline point of view, this scene just cannot exist because we can see monkeys also helping the royal family out here in the exile. And as per the timeline, the Sita and the monkey army, they just don't see each other at the same time period. It's only after the abduction of Sita that we see Ram meeting Sugriva and the monkey troops decide to help the prince of Ayodhya. So perhaps what this painting is supposed to symbolize is that every time Ram got into a trouble or there was agony bestowed upon the character of Rama, Lakshmana has always been there to help his brother in such circumstances. But a lovely composition nevertheless. And as we can see, the previous painting was from 1700, and this is almost a century later, but the subject matter must have remained very much popular for the Pahari painters across regions nevertheless. Now,
Sorry to interrupt you. What was the dead animal? That is the golden deer?
No. It's just a regular deer.
Okay.
Just a regular deer. There are several paintings that depict Ram and Lakshmana hunting deer.
Oh.
Let's move on. So this is from the Rasamanjari, likely from Chamba, as the style suggests, and it shows Anukula Nayaka. So Anukula Nayaka and Dakshina Nayaka are two different Nayakas. The difference being Anukul Nayaka is the one with one wife. So in this case, Rama is represented as Anukul Nayaka, and Dakshin Nayaka is the Nayaka with more than one wife. So in many cases, we see Krishna being appropriated as the Dakshina Nayaka. But in the case of Anukula Nayaka, Bhanudatta, the poet of Rasamanjari, he writes such a fantastic verse. He says, the moment Sita decided to walk with Rama towards the exile, so Rama makes this small prayer. He utters this short prayer in his heart. Rama says, "O dear land, O dear earth goddess, please be gentle on your terrestrial surface, for Sita is your daughter, and do not cause any troubles for her when she walks your chorus surface. O dear son, my great forefather, since Rama is a Suryavanshi Kshatriya, so he says, O dear son, my great father, please be gentle with your rays, for Sita is a princess and may not scorch her with your bright light." And then he says, "O dear wind, please calm down and turn into a pleasant breeze, because my wife is not uh, I don't want any trouble to fall upon my wife because of you, so don't cause her any torment. O great sea, please be gentle with your waves, for Sita shall be walking with me to great distances. O Dandaka forest, please come near so that she doesn't have a lot of trouble on her way. O time, be haste, so that we reach our destination as fast as possible, not to cause any trouble to my wife. So these are these loving things that Rama says towards Sita, that even though the painting appears to be highly simple, it's uncomplicated, there's not a lot of complexities that one gets to see. But if you understand the context that lies behind the painting, then this picture becomes highly lovely. And there's a very similar case in Valmiki's Ramayana, the Kishkinda book as well, in which after the slaying of Bali, when Sugriva is made the king of Kishkinda, and then after getting busy with his leisurely activities in the court of Kishkinda, Sugriva completely forgets about the vow to help Rama in his search for Sita. So Rama and Lakshmana, they spend their days at Kishkinda doing absolutely nothing, just waiting for Sugriva to remember his vow. And several seasons pass, and Rama describes those seasons to Lakshmana with great detail. And this might be the among the earliest representations of Baramasa, the 12 seasons of a year in Indian poetic tradition. So Rama says to Lakshmana, while remembering the many seasons that he spent with Sita. So he says, whenever Sita would see the full moon night of the autumn season, since they are in autumn season at this point, she would start. She would yearn, and then she would make sounds like that of a sarasa bird. So she'll speak gently like a sarasa bird. But now that she's away from me and she's not able to see me anymore, will she still be yearning for me in her pleasant voice, who she would be yearning for in my absence? Every time the water of the lake shall get cold, Sita would lovingly use it to bathe, etc., etc. And then would she still be doing it in my absence? So there are all these circumstances that Rama remembers and tells Lakshmana about it. And then while remembering these episodes, Rama starts crying. And then Lakshmana is highly agitated on seeing Rama in this state. So even though Rama is depicted as this very strong man with a very strong disposition, but yet here is a very weak or a very emotional look at at the Ayodhya prince. So a fantastic detail from this point of view, and of course a highly tranquil, serene representation of these two brothers talking. Now, while writing the Rasamanjari, Bhanudatta, of course, must have remembered this episode from the Ramayana, and here he plays upon this circumstance. He plays with the situation, and he turns it into a completely opposite thing, but it is also as loving and tender as Valmiki's rendition. So, what Bhanudatta says in Rasamanjari is, when Rama and Lakshmana, when the weather starts getting good, and Rama started remembering Sita, he did not want his brother to see Rama lamenting for Sita. Otherwise, Lakshmana would have been highly agitated seeing his brother in such a state. So Rama intentionally hides his emotions and he does not let Lakshmana see his tears. And since Rama was not able to express his emotions outrightly when he was facing pangs of separation, viraha, so it started eating Rama from inside out, and as a result, Ram starts becoming weak. So this is from Bhanudatta's Rasamanjari. So as we can see in the composition that they stand inside a very lovely grove in the forest, and Lakshmana asks with folded hands of his brother if everything is all right, and Rama does not say anything. So he hides this detail from his brother. Fantastic painting. And now the viraha, or the pangs of separation, shown from the point of view of Sita, excuse me. So now viraha, or separation, shown from the point of view of Sita. And Sita right here is sitting in the Ashoka Vatika surrounded by Rakshasis or demonesses that are appointed by Ravana to put her into check, and either to manipulate her or threaten her into accepting Ravana as her husband. So here the Rakshasis, they take a manipulative approach to make Sita change her mind. So they start praising Ravana as that he's a very gentle man, he comes from a great lineage, he shall look after you very well, he will give up all his other wives for you, you shall become the Maharani, etc., etc. And then, but Sita, she remains steadfast and she remains firm in her determination. and she does not, and she says that I can see no man other than my husband Rama. And to this, the demonesses, they get highly agitated and they start threatening Sita with their intimidating gestures. But here you can see what the painter has done, the trick that he has played. Sita sits right here, surrounded by this fantastic Ashoka Vatika grove, within this, surrounded by these Rakshasis of different gestures and different facial expressions. And here lies the golden Lanka. Here lies the sea, the Sagar. And across the sea lie the mountains, the hills of Kishkindha. So in her mind, this is the actual composition right here. And this scene right here is what is going on through Sita's mind. And look at the turbulence in the water. So it is the turbulence that is going into the mind of Sita that the painter has represented through his representation, the depiction of this turmoil of the water of the sea. But everything else is absolutely deserted, not a single person to be seen inside. Sorrow represented in the most solemn form. It's almost as if somebody has passed. Another lovely representation. So this is not in Valmiki's Ramayana. Many people comment that this is perhaps a folk rendition of the event, but it says that now Sita has taken a vow of hunger. So she says she shall not eat anything unless she sees Rama. And of course, it takes Rama time to reach Lanka and then slay Ravana and then release Sita from his clutches. But if Sita dies before seeing Rama, then it puts the entire timeline into trouble. So Brahma, he dispatches Indra with the celestial kheer, and that kheer is then offered to Sita, and Sita sips that kheer, and Indra consoles her and tells her that Rama is on his way and he shall be there soon. And what this painting is phenomenal for is not the representation of Sita and Indra, but the highly heartrending representation of these Rakshasis as they are fast asleep. You can almost see the humane aspect of these demons through this representation. Phenomenally done. And the reason they are asleep is because they are put to sleep by the Nidra Devi or the Yoga Nidra. So they are into this celestial sleep that has been cast upon them with magic. And look at this fantastic Mughal Chahar Bagh garden right there in the back. A lovely painting. And finally, the coronation of Rama as the king of Yodhya after his return. Now, usually when we see coronation scenes in Pahari painting, it's usually Rama put on the throne, Sita sitting next to him, and then they are surrounded by Hanuman, Jamvan, Sugriv, Rama's brothers, and then you have the cosmic order restored. In this painting, what the artist has done is he has depicted the coronation of Rama as the king of Ayodhya, but he's absolutely indifferent to whatever is happening around him. Rather, he is lost in the gaze of his wife Sita. So it is not the celebration of Rama as the restorer of order or the killer of demons or the god of dharma. Rather, he's just a husband who finally has managed to be united, be one with his wife. And Sita, he also responds with equally pleasant gestures at him. So they're just locked within their sights and gazing at each other with love. So a fantastic representation, even though the painting is not in a very good state anymore. And now we come to the most excellent of beings, the Mahadeva Shiva. And Shiva's appearance in Indian mythological framework is once in a millennium sort of an opportunity. Because unlike Krishna, who is celebrated through song, dance, literature, painting, etc., Shiva is the producer, the ultimate artist himself. He is the king of the dancers. He is the king of the musicians. He makes compositions. He writes he writes literature, he writes prose, he composes celestial hymns. Tumbru, etc., the celestial musicians, they all trace their origin to Shiva as the guru of all the arts. And yet, there is another aspect of Shiva that is not much spoken about in the literary sequence that we shall be coming to just in a moment. Shaivism in the Pahari Hills has been a phenomena arguably, if not as equal, then much older than Vaishnavism itself. And several pockets in the northern and central Himalayas, places such as Chamba, Mandi, Kulu, they have an ardent devotion to Shiva since times of yore. Here I have a 10th century bronze from Chamba showing Shiva and Parvati riding Nandi. And on the right, I have a 14th century stone sculpture from Chamba showing a yogi with his locks bound upon his head. So Shaivite cult or worship of Shiva has remained mainstream throughout the history of the Chamba region at least. Another reason for Shiva's popularity in the region is because of the situation of the Mani Mahesh Kailash in Bharamor, which is the ancient capital of the Chamba region. And every single year, thousands of devotees they flock towards Mani Mahesh to see the Kailash mountain right here on top, and then take a dip into the dull lake that we can see underneath. Now, the Gaddis, the shepherds, the aboriginal population of the Chamba region, they also have great veneration for Shiva, and there are several temples dedicated to Shiva within the Bharmor region, the homeland of the Gaddi population. As we can see that on the right, you have the Mani Mahesh temple dedicated to Shiva erected. Now, when we come to representation of Shiva in Pahari paintings, he is usually seen in paintings based on the Shiva Purana or the Kumara Sambhava. But I shall be showing paintings based on the dhyanas of Shiva or representing Shiva not based on a particular subject matter, but just representations of Shiva for devotional reasons. So here we have Shiva and his family descending from Kailasha. So here we can see Shiva riding the Nandi, Parvati riding her lion, a tiger here, Ganesha swiftly running across on his mouse, and Kartikeya riding his peacock. And the family is descending down from the Kailasha towards the plains in a manner, interestingly, very similar to how the Gadi shepherd population migrates from the hills towards the plains every single winter. So here the painter, perhaps unintentionally, try to create a parallel between the god Shiva, the overlord, and his disciples, his followers. As his followers, the mountain people, they rush from the hills towards the plains every single season. Their god, Shiva, their lord, he also does the same accordingly with his family, placing Shiva in a very interesting place, in a very interesting spot, as not as a god or a deity, but a family man descending down along with his family. And look at this gaze that he delivers upon Parvati, my God. Lovely representation. She shyly hides her face from her husband by drawing a veil upon it. Here is another representation from Chamba. Shiva and Parvati on their way down, even though the background is replaced by a backdrop at this point. But fantastically done. Again, loving expression on the face of Shiva. So here's another representation. This is more similar to, this is much similar to how it must have functioned in reality. So here we have, you can see that they have packed their goods. Everything is nicely heaped in, wrapped in bed sheets. And Ganesha this time rides the bull. Kartikeya's peacock is also perched upon that bull. The tiger is slowly, calmly following their steps, and the mouse is also trying to keep up with the pace. And Parvati right here holds the infant Skanda upon her lap, and the holy family descends down from the Kailasha. And here is the Ganaraja, the king of the Ganas, the chief Gana, head Gana of Shiva's Gana troops, holding Shiva's belongings upon his head. And the royal family descends. Lovely. Now, These are also exceptionally beautiful. Shiva's family in winter repose, usually shown Shiva as a nomad along with his family. He calls it a night where the night occurs. So when they're moving on their way from the mountains towards the plains, wherever the dusk appears, they lay down their flag and then they call it a night. So usually they're sleeping out in the wilderness. So a bonfire has been set up and the animals are fast asleep around it. And Shiva is ready with his ball of bhang, but the serpent appears more curious than the Mahadeva himself, while Parvati lovingly adores her husband. Kartikeya he suckles upon Parvati, and Ganpati Ganesha is just laughing at the entire sequence. And there's this air of extreme tranquility, serenity that surrounds the entire composition. You can see this air of harmony as if everything is all right throughout the composition. And the chiaroscuro that the painter creates, this play of light and shadow, with this light emitting from this bonfire, it adds the spirit to the entire composition. Beautiful. The bull and the lion sleep in harmony. So another representation of the same scenario. So here, Shiva and Parvati, on their way down, they decided to stop at a passage, and now Shiva is straining his bhang, Parvati is helping him do it, and Ganesha is back to his mischievous turn, whatever he does. And here, Nandi is being offered water by Kartikeya. Another representation as the night falls. So Parvati is trying to put the kids to sleep. The animals have slept. And Shiva advances towards Parvati with love in his heart. So again, exchange of loving gaze. And a beautiful canopy of gem-studded night sky envelops the entire sequence. A very lovely expression of the line as well. This is Shiva and Parvati before consuming bhang together. And what I like in this painting is these drooping eyelids of Shiva as they get heavy with cannabis consumption, as he lovingly looks at Parvati, and Parvati reciprocates the same expression. And I like how tender and gentle Shiva's hands appear as he puts it on Parvati's shoulder. It's a lovely painting through and through. This is also one of my favorites. It shows Parvati fast asleep, but Shiva, he just can't sleep. So he's contemplating, looking at Parvati's moonlit face. Loving sequence. Okay, so now this is something out of the box. There have been several representations of descent of the Ganges, or Gangavataran as it is called in Sanskrit, and it shows Ganga descending from the locks of Shiva's hair, matted hair. Here the painter has played with the same traditional image, but here he has tried to make it intimate. So now instead of running from out of Shiva's tuft, Ganga is symbolized, or she is personified as a lovely maiden who is half naked, and she rides Shiva's shoulder. And as she moves while riding Shiva's shoulders, the friction that is produced between her privates and Shiva's matted hair forces her to ejaculate the water of the Ganges from her privates as she ejaculates out of ecstasy. So this highly erotic and kamotejic representation of descent of the Ganges, never to be seen before in the history of Indian art. So Ganges just gushes out of her privates while riding Shiva. There's this sense of sudden urgency in this scene. As you can see, Shiva, as he moves forward, lovingly done. Now, this is the opening of the Rasamanjari, and perhaps the last slide dedicated to Shiva as a lover in my presentation. In the original text of Bhanudatta's Rasamanjari, the composition is imagined as a sequence happening with Ardhanarishwara, but here the painter has decided to bifurcate the figures into two, perhaps for better mobility of the sequence. So he says that Shiva, he's so attentive towards Parvati that he does not want her to have the least of trouble that she could get into. So whenever the Ardhanarishwara moves forward, it is Shiva who always places his right foot forth, as Shiva is on Ardhanarishwara's right side. Whenever Parvati sees a beautiful flower, Shiva, using his own hand, plucks that flower up and gives it to Parvati. And whenever they decide to lay down, Shiva always lays down on the right side, which is his own side, so that the weight is not borne by Parvati. So it is everything that Shiva does, he does it for Parvati. So he is so ever attentive towards his wife. So a lovely verse, a lovely imagination composition by Bhanudatta, and complemented by equally beautiful a painting. And finally, here we have the wedding procession of Shiva from Kumara Sambhava. So as we know the tale that Shiva and Parvati were supposed to be married so that Skanda could be born, Kartikeya could be born as the general of the gods. And here we have Shiva as a groom riding the Nandi instead of a horse, and he is accompanied by Brahma, the one who administers this wedding as the celestial priest, since he is a Brahmin god. And then we have the gods and demigods of Indian mythology. So you have Chandra, you have Surya, Yamraj is here as well. Then various ganas of Shivas, Asuras, Rakshasas have also joined the wedding procession. Then you have Vishnu, Agni, also participating in the procession. And a group of Asuras and Ganas, they are dominating the sequence right in front of you. And they're dancing merrily, much to the curiosity of Parvati's maidens, bridemaids, as they look at this entire sequence from their windows. They are not able to believe what they are seeing because they have never seen such a thing before. So these Asuras, they are dancing for their lord, as Shiva is also king of the Asuras. And within this composition, these gods, they are not divine anymore. Now everybody in this painting is reduced to just participants inside of wedding processions, just participating in the Bharat of Shiva. And even Shiva himself is no longer the god in this composition, rather he's just a groom anxiously on his way to see his bride being welcomed by the bride side. And this is the ultimate representation that one could see of how divinity becomes humane and how humans are raised to the divine level. And now the Purusha and the Prakriti, or the masculine and the feminine, they are in equal measures. The equilibrium has been balanced. Now, just to provide another side of the picture, what happens when demons fall in love? So this is from the Markandeya Purana, a very lovely representation right here, a mini narrative, micro narrative. So the goddess, she's born as Ambika, and while Ambika was meditating on the banks of the Ganga, she was seen by these two demons called Chanda and Munda. So here we can see this is Chanda and this is Munda. And immediately when they set their eyes on Ambika, since they have never seen a woman this beautiful, they rush towards their king, the demon Shumbha. So here is Shumbha seated upon his throne, attended by the demon attendants. It is a typical court scene, but instead of king, now we have a demon king attended by demon attendants. And then Chanda and Munda, they hastily tell Shumbha about this beautiful maiden, and they have never seen such a beauty before. And you should certainly marry her, make her your queen. And then Shumbha dreamily imagines Ambika as his wife. You can see with his expression, already he has fallen in love, hit by one of those arrows of Kamadeva. And being burnt in this agony out of love, he dispatches a messenger by the name Sugriva to see Ambika and convey his proposal to marry Shumbha. Now, when Sugriva sees Ambika and he says all these wonderful things about Shumbha, that he is a fantastic Rakshasa, you will be very happy being in love with her or even married to him. He shall fulfill all your desires, etc., etc. Ambika says, I'm not interested, thank you so much. So, Sugriva, with a broken heart, you can see the angry expression. He returns back to Shumbha to tell him that your advances has been rejected. This lady, she is too proud, so she doesn't want to marry you. So Shumbha sends his army to fight Ambika, and Shumbha's general Dhumralochan is reduced to ash by Ambika, and the rest of the Asura troops are killed by Ambika's lion, as you can see. So this is how love and intimacy are reciprocated by the gods towards these asuras. So a fantastic representation and a fantastic micro narration as well. Now I started the presentation with Kumaraswamy, and it only makes sense to end my presentation with Kumaraswamy as well. And again, in the seminal text of Rajput painting 1916, Kumaraswamy also notes when he says that Pahari painting or Rajput painting is a lovely world where all the men are heroic and brave, all the women are beautiful, and all the animals, wild and tame, are friends of man. But he says this magic world is not unreal or fanciful, but it is a world of imagination and eternity, but it will only be visible to those who see it with the transfiguring eyes of love. With this, I end my presentation. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Saran. What amazing, amazing visuals. And you can just stop sharing your slide, maybe.
All right.
Yeah, I said, oh my God, what amazing visuals and such emotional, I mean, resonating with emotion, and they appear so personal. I mean, they are devotional paintings, but the whole interpretation, the artistic imagination is such that they appear very personal, unlike the stiff devotional paintings that we normally see. I think I'll invite Rajgopal to take over the question answer session now. Welcome to you, Rajgopal.
Yeah. Another fascinating session. Thank you, viewers, a couple of them, in fact. So the first question from Divya. The 17th, 18th, and 19th century paintings look very different from each other in terms of style and treatment. What were the influences that caused these changes?
Well, there are several factors responsible for these changes. In the 17th century, we don't see a lot of uniformity across the schools or the different centers of painting. So it is almost when all of these centers, they're opening up for the outside world simultaneously, they're inviting people to enter these kingdoms from left, right, and center. So if there are some painters coming from, say, Lahore, there are painters coming from Delhi, there are painters coming from Central India. All of them, they are entering at the same time and they're experimenting with their own body of work. So if a painter, say, comes from Lahore and he's trained in a particular workshop, he continues to work within that workshop. But after spending a century at a place, and they're working in such close quarters with each other, a certain homogeneity starts coming to play. So they're letting go of their own individual artistic styles and they start borrowing from each other, leading to a particular proper school sort of an arrangement.
Yes,
And
but sorry to interrupt you, but
yes,
what was the style that was present here before it opened up? I mean, I also wanted to ask you that question. Before
so
Akbar's influence and the doors of these areas opened up, what did the local people paint like?
So there
What
is
was the
no
influence?
there is no known consensus as to what happened in the hills prior to coming under the centralized government system.
Oh.
Because the earliest paintings that we have found so far are from the mid 17th century. Interestingly, when Khandalawala writes his 1958 Pahari miniature painting text, and at that time it was believed that the earliest Pahari paintings come from late 1600s. So the theory that was propounded was when Aurangzeb let go of many of these painters from the Mughal atelier, these Pahari Rajas had these painters invited to their own kingdoms to start painting. But recently, over the last 3 decades or so, we have started getting paintings from early 17th century, 1625, 1630.
Future.
This entire theory has been changed ever since. But we don't know what kind of paintings were being made prior to these painters they started.
Yeah, sorry for that interruption.
No problem, no problem. But by
Sarang, yeah,
yeah,
a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So why is it that we did not have anything before the 15th century at all?
well, no one can really say with any confidence, right? But either there must have been paintings made because they were definitely aware with the pictorial medium. We find these fantastic wood carvings that are coming from the region from the 13th century, 14th century. We have fountain stone slabs made from almost around the same period, and there is no way possible that you are able to design stone carvings or wood carvings prior to knowledge of delineating on another surface or a pictorial surface. There must
No,
have
also
something
the
that must have.
earliest paintings are of such high standard that they could not have come out of nowhere. There must have been a foundation which must have evolved to that level of high level of
Yes.
artistic excellence. No.
So that is exactly what my point is. The painters who came to these places. So you see, from 1640 to 1650, we see this sophistication in style. From 1670 to 1680, we see that the sophistication has reduced, if I may use the word, to a degree. And that brings to us the question that perhaps some painters came from outside, they trained local craftsmen, they went back, or they went someplace else. That is why we see this dip in terms of the quality of manufacture. And 50 years later, these local painters, they again have a resurgence in their pictorial quality, and we start to see another resurgence. And 50 years later, by around 1780 to 1800, the style starts dipping again. So it's almost like a pendulum. So it's always high low every two generations or so. And this should also be kept in mind that by 1800 to 1820, the Sikhs are rising in Punjab as a dominant force. So many of these Pahari artists, they are moving westwards. So they came from Lahore, they're returning to Lahore 4 generations later. So it's a very interesting dynamic that one gets to see.
Yeah, so by that time we also had the East India Company firmly in place across many of these regions. So do we see any influences of the British influence or outside influence in Pahadi paintings, Sarah?
Yes, we do see, especially in portraiture. So we do see that these local painters, they're opening up to new sensibilities, how to create front-facing portraits, or how to make these rajas seated on wooden chairs instead of thrones. So the formula that was developed and then evolved over the course of 2 centuries is completely abandoned in favor of how paintings should appear very much like a photograph. There are several instances where we see painted photographs. So a photograph of a king has been taken, and then some Pahari miniaturist has painted over it with his traditional colors. There is one such photograph I saw in the Shimla Museum. I would be very much eager to share it on my Instagram or something if anybody is interested.
Okay, sure.
Very nice. So many of these paintings that you showcase today seem to be abroad, either in the US or UK somewhere. Besides, the paintings we saw from Chandigarh Museum. Uh, is Chandigarh the only place in India where we get to see many of these, or are there other museums in India where we can see Pahadi paintings, Sarah?
There are fantastic paintings in the National Museum. There are lovely paintings in the Buri Singh Museum at Chamba, which is among the earliest museums in the subcontinent. Then Lahore Museum has a fantastic collection of Pahari miniature paintings. National Museum, New Delhi, of course. Then LD Museum, Ahmedabad. So there are several domestic museums as well where we find these paintings. The only reason I'm using paintings from North American museums is because they are documented really very well. So the digitization has been done really very well.
I said you showed a lot of devotional paintings with a different eye or different way of looking at them. What did they also depict other themes in the Pahadi paintings? Like in Rajasthan, we saw so many other aspects also covered, no? Or were they largely only devotional? with a different eye, of course, painted with an eye. I mean, the devotional texts were visually embodied into these paintings with the painter's own point of view coming through, etc. But largely devotional. I mean, there were no social or other kind of paintings.
No, there were no social paintings to speak of, but if we speak about non-devotional or secular paintings, as we could say, they primarily are either through portraiture or Ragamala paintings, or primarily these, and then paintings based on romantic
I mean, there
literature.
were one or two,
Love-
like the
love
Raja,
poetry.
I mean, like the king going to the Acharya, the Vaishnava Acharya. Those, I
Right.
suppose, could be
Yeah,
called
but
those.
those would be portraits in any
Yeah.
case. But yes, there are non-devotional paintings as well. There are Ragamala paintings. Then there are very curious paintings. I shall share with you a living example. There is a text dedicated to horse diseases called Shalihotra Samhita. It's a Sanskrit text. It shows nothing but horses facing several diseases of different sorts. So, a vomiting horse, what should we do if a horse starts to vomit? I have one such album, a hand painted Shalihotra Samhita from Chamba, in my own personal collection, dated 1896, I believe. And it has such fantastic representation of diseased horses that you won't find anywhere. So one particular painting that comes to mind is a horse who is suffering an uncurable disease. There is no cure to that disease. And imagine you're a 19th century Chamba monarch and you want a Shalihotra painting to be made, and you tell your painter to make a horse who can't be treated, right? And now the painter has never seen such a thing. Now, what do you do in such a situation? You can make the horse bleed out of his mouth, or you can show his ribs, or you can make boils on his skin, or you can make all of these things simultaneously. And these are the challenges, these unconventional challenges that truly attract me toward Pahari painting, because you shall not see anything of this sort ever again anyplace else. Yeah.
Very interesting. So beyond Vaishnavite and Shaivite themes, we don't see any other religious traditions being represented.
We do see a lot of Devi paintings. So
Okay.
there are tantric paintings of the Devi, fantastic series
Oh.
from the Sohli, 1650,
Wow.
60. Then there are tantric representations of Shiva as well. There are tantric representations of Hanuman as well. So there is a lot of tantric, because there is a lot of tantric or occult traditions in Himachal Pradesh. So those are also documented in the pictorial medium.
So nothing
One
about
thing I
Sikhism. Sorry, Gauri, go
no,
ahead.
you go on, go on.
No,
Yeah,
you mentioned about Sikhs,
Yeah.
kind of rising around that time. Are there influences of Sikhism in the paintings? Do we
of
see
course there
Sikh
is.
traditions?
Of course, there is. There's a lot of Janam Sakhi paintings we see, paintings on the birth of Guru Nanak, the life of Guru Nanak.
Oh.
And then we get paintings based on Guru Gobind Singh Ji as well. So there are several such paintings in the Pahari region. Rather interestingly, there is a Raja of Chamba, Raja Ras Singh, who reigned from 1764 to 1782. And you can see him dressed absolutely like Guru Gobind Singh Ji. So the beard, the turban, the clothing, everything. So you can see that the Sikh sophistication is coming through fashion as well. So these paintings, they become documentary evidence of the changing fashion statements of that period. So that also
Very
is something
nice.
that came to my mind.
Go ahead, Gauri.
I noticed one thing, as purely as artistic compositions, there were several paintings, where the action or the concentration was to one side, and bulk of the canvas was almost empty, not exactly empty, but it was shifted focus to one corner, which we don't see in too many traditional paintings at all. Like
Right.
especially one where you showed Sita in that Ashokavana, and then the golden city of Lanka was there, but it was largely bare. All the action was on one side. Or Rama and Lakshmana talking about Baramasa. The action was to one side. I mean, the whole focus and bulk of the canvas appeared to be almost empty. Like this is a very different style, which was not really followed in the ancient paintings much. Like
Yeah.
the focus never shifted to one side like that.
That is primarily because these paintings, they were parts of these albums called murakas. In Farsi, we call them muraka. So as we move one leaf to the other, one folio to the next, so wherever the sight is fixed on the previous page, it immediately picks up from that point in the proceeding folio. So whatever was happening in the preceding page shall be followed by the next page, and the sight shall remain wherever it left on the previous page. So in primarily, I see, since the text goes from left to right, in many instances the composition also flows from left to right in a linear fashion. So if there are several episodes in one painting, they shall always move from left to right, not vice versa. If you remember that Rama getting thrown, picked out of his foot, so Lakshmana appears thrice in the composition. So from left to right, so from shoulder to foot, yeah. So that is something that I've noticed many a time. But this space and time in Pahari painting is, of course, very interesting. And many times they are also completely turning their own formula over its head.
The whole composition.
Yes. So it's free jazz, basically. There are no rules to it.
Yeah. Rajput.
Fascinating. Dr. Nagaraj Sharma has congratulated you. Your presentation is highly professional. Congrats and thanks. That's from Dr. Nagaraj.
Thank you very much. Very kind of
And
that.
I had one last question, the same that I asked the previous speaker. What were the sizes of these paintings, and did they all use only paper? I mean, were they there on cloth and other mediums also?
I think usually these paintings would be from 12 centimeter to 24 centimeter would be the largest that one would see this painting. That would be the largest. And the average size would be from 9 to 10 centimeter to 16 to 18 centimeter. So that is the greatest extent that we see these paintings to be measured.
Smaller than an A4 mostly.
Smaller than an A4 mostly, yes. Including the margins, of course. And as far as medium is concerned, this is very interesting because we see the painting made on paper, we see paintings made in the form of murals as well on temple walls, and then we have wood carvings done by these Pahari painters. So there are paintings made on wood as well. So first these painters, they carved the wood, then they added paint over the wood. So it's a wooden painting from that point of view.
Is the tradition continuing in some capacity till date, Sarang?
Yes, I myself belong to a family of Pahari miniaturists.
Wow.
My father and all my uncles, they are miniaturists in their own rights. I also trained as a miniaturist till I came of around 12 of age. And then I realized that I'm not doing very well as a miniaturist. So I switched over.
Just to add, I just read yesterday that his father has done amazing work in reviving the art locally and establishing the guild. And I think his father also curates the museum that he talked about in Chamba. And his father is a Padma Shri awardee who's been recognized for reviving this art in that region, in the modern context. Yeah.
Very kind. Thank you so much.
No, that is true. So, really. So, they are, as a family, they have done enormously to revive this art and preserve this tradition. So, which is really fantastic. Yeah, I think on that note, we can end the day. And thank you for an amazing lecture, as told by one of our audience, so professionally delivered. And not to mention that the visuals were just really, really so nice. Just shows that we all need to read up and learn far more than what we think. And thank you for answering all our questions.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarang, for brightening our Sunday evening.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
This one. Yeah, with that we come to the end of day 4. And today we saw regional painting styles, first from the courts of Rajasthan and then the foothills of Himalayas. Tomorrow we'll be looking at another day where we talk about 2 more styles of painting where the external influence can be clearly seen. So it is a whole idea of how India adapted and flourished under external influences. And the day is titled Sultanate and Mughal Aesthetics. We have 2 more lectures lined up for you. From the Tamil Heritage Trust, thank you to all our audience. Hoping to see you tomorrow.